quorum for a work session because there's no decisions being made, right?
I mean, you're not actually holding a meeting.
Well, we're holding a meeting, but we're not making decisions.
You can't hold a meeting until there's a quorum, but you can still talk about things just like you would outside of the meeting time.
That is a good reply. Let's do it.
Or you can just talk.
We're
Nothing's stopping you from
No,
talking.
we don't know where we are, Brittany had an emergency, so.
So you don't start the work session until we have a quorum, right?
Oh, can we start a work session without a quorum? We can just start the discussion, and then when we get a quorum, we start the work
And
session.
technically start the work session once you have a quorum.
So I won't record anything until you actually start the work session.
This is because Brittany and Sarah is going to be in and watch this later. We'll wait another 5 minutes. Let me text Tim to see how close he is. Yeah, that's right.
Tyler, you go home.
Not on budget night.
It not necessary for the finance director to be here for this. He'll be here for budget. We may have a bet just on how much it's going to take for budget.
Don't tell us that.
Sorry.
I was teaching my treadmill class Monday morning. You're welcome. And then all of a sudden, like, we finished up and I looked over. And here's Tyler on the treadmill. Just AFR. So. It was, you guys had Monday off, right? Yeah. Monday.
Sorry, guys. They won't record it, and so if Brittany and Sarah want to watch it, they can't see it. It's not recorded.
We'll look up some lots.
Where's Doug?
Oh.
Actually surprised he's not here.
Doug, where is Doug?
He might not be aware that he thinks that he don't see this. Don't come for budget next questions. Tom, you'll keep recording, we won't be recording for the official, that way if Sarah, Brittany, or Tim need to show up to see, they'll be able to come back in and watch it. Okay. That's we better get going. Okay, it is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. It is 6:21. We want to welcome those who are here for our work session. We are missing at this time Councilmember Sarah Peterson, Councilmember Brittany Bills, and Councilmember Tim Ball. We are hoping that Tim will be able to join us here shortly. But with that, we have a special presentation today on an active transportation plan. We've had committees between Alpine City and Highland City that put together. We've hired Horrocks Engineering to do this, along with the Mountain Association of Governments, where we got a grant from. So we will now turn the time over to Horrocks. So please.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Alexis Herson. I'm the project manager with Horrocks. I manage our planning group. So I'm going to kick off our presentation here, just talk about the overview of our process. I'm a planner, so I'm very process-oriented. And then I'm going to have Matt on my team come up and talk about some of the specifics that are actually in the planning document itself and some of the resources that we've developed. Next slide, please. Great. Okay, so just a quick little back history here. Alpine and Highland came together and determined that there's a need for a comprehensive plan to identify and advance active transportation facilities both in each community and between each communities, right? There's many, many amenities to access across city boundaries, and so it made a lot of sense to kind of pool resources and come up with those network recommendations together. So the cities applied jointly for funding to MAG, were awarded funding, put an RFP out, and Horrocks was selected through a competitive process to do the plan. Next slide, please. So, sorry if this is a little dumbed down, but for our sake, we wanted to define active transportation. It's a little bit different every plan we do for each community, depending on what their goals and values are. So for this plan, we define active transportation as human-powered transportation, including walking, biking, e-scootering, bike share or e-bikes, rolling in a wheelchair, jogging, and horseback riding, which is something we heard that was fairly unique to this area. And why do we need a plan in the first place? So our goal is to develop a blueprint for your city staff to have a phased plan for implementation. So as roadways are built, rebuilt, as development comes in and redevelops or densifies, we have a plan to point to say, here's what we need to put back down once we reconstruct this or construct this. It allows the cities to be strategic, seek construction funds, have an understanding of some of those budgets, roles and responsibilities, and really plan ahead from a budgetary standpoint. Next slide, please. So why is enhancing active transportation crucial? For one, our communities are asking for it. They're asking for choices in mobility and transportation. The population in this area is growing very, very quickly, as you all know and are all dealing with and advancing facilities for. And so adding redundancies in our active transportation network for people walking, biking, eventually accessing transit services likely in the future. A lot of these things improve quality of life, the health of our communities, the safety of our non-motorized travelers, but also actually our drivers as well. Complete streets are much safer for all modes. And then obviously creating new connections to amenities and access to opportunities.
I'm glad you have a picture of my favorite trail.
Okay.
Caddyland.
We took that, we did a really fun site visit last fall and took that photo. So in our plan, we actually have some specific case studies and specific data points that kind of back up some of that, right? And we're explaining to our development partners or other city partners why this is important and why we should be investing in this. We actually have some tangible data that tells us why it's important to do that. So I'm not going to go through these in too much detail. They are in the plan itself. But basically, in summary, complete streets, active transportation improvements have many, many benefits for all of our travelers. So this was our planning process. We wanted to create something that was transparent, really community-driven. We spent a lot of time with our steering committee. Some of you participated in that. The Alpine School District, we had many meetings and kind of pointed conversations and poured over maps together with them. And we wanted to create a defensible process so that when you do go to apply for funding, whether it's state funding or federal funding, you can say, we have this data-driven and community-driven plan, we've recorded it, we've adopted it, and now we want to seek funding for it. So we developed a vision and guiding principles with our steering committee. We collected data, that's things like crash data, existing and future land uses, what the regional transportation plan says we're going to be building here in the future, and some demographic information. Who are our travelers and what are their needs? We have a lot of young families, we have a lot of seniors. How do we accommodate them as they maybe age out of driving, things like that? How do we create those school connections? And then again, of course, ongoing stakeholder and public engagement. We have a couple slides on that later on. And then we developed a backbone network. So that's really the regional, comfortable, active transportation network. How do we get people north-south, east-west? How do we connect it to those major destinations? And how do we make sure we space that backbone network within a reasonable distance from everybody who lives in these two communities? We want them all to have access. And then we developed support facilities, traffic calming options. We heard a lot through our outreach that there were concerns about speeding and kind of how right-of-way was allocated for vehicles. So we wanted to provide a toolbox for the cities to implement some improvements in the future. Then we prioritized a project list. We went pretty detailed. We have projects broken out by backbone projects. We have it broken out by cities. We've segmented them. So we have a lot of ways to kind of look at that and provide a resource for implementation. And then we actually provided some cost estimation for our top priority projects so that those are really ready to advance into grant application and funding seeking at this time. Here is the vision and guiding principles that we developed. I am not going to read them word for word. They are in the plan, but these were developed comprehensively with our steering committee. And then we also developed goals and objectives. What are we really trying to achieve with this plan, and what are the objectives underneath those goals that really are kind of measurable, right? We want to make sure as we're developing recommendations that we're actually meeting these well, right? Working with local partners, engaging residents, reviewing current city standards, making recommendations to improve those based on industry best standards, etc. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of that data collection that we did do. We didn't collect new data, we mined existing data sources. There's a lot of data out there. That's one of our larger sections in the plan, but this is just kind of a snapshot of one of those pieces. Where are existing sidewalks and bike lanes? Where are the gaps in those? What's planned in the future so that we can capture those in our network? Again, Safe Routes to School was a big focus. We heard that a lot from the community. Strava data, that's really kind of recreation trips for people walking and mostly biking. It helps us kind of understand preferred routes for people recreating. What roads are they taking and why, or what connections are they using and why? Crash data, this is the map that's shown here. We really wanted to extrapolate where those crashes were occurring, what some of those attributes or causes might be, and how that could inform our recommendations. Intersections, as you can see here, are hotspots for people and people riding bikes and vehicle crashes. So we really extrapolated kind of those vulnerable roadway users and tried to look at what improvements we might need to make there. This is not a surprise to anybody. Most crashes occur on high-speed, high-volume roads, so that was a big focus for the backbone network. Public involvement, again, we did an online survey, 737 responses, really reflective of the populations between each cities. We did an in-person open house here. We had an online comment map. People could actually drop a pin on a specific location and say, this is the problem area, or I would like a crossing here, or I want to be able to access this place on my bike. So we've got some really, really qualitative data that way. Project website, we hosted booths at the city Halloween events to drive people to the website and the survey, answer any questions. We did some in-depth interviews, and then we had 4 steering committee working groups. Just some high-level findings there. One of the appendices in the plan is a detailed report of the public involvement findings, but just at a high level, we did this very early on in our process to understand what community priorities were to help us kind of drive our approach. People strongly believe that it's important to have a safe and inclusive connection between the two cities. Most people are walking and biking for exercise and recreation, but there's a good number of people that are traveling to school and work as well. And then most people prefer those multi-use pathways, right? Kind of behind curb, comfortable, separated from cars and traffic. That's not really a surprise. Everybody wants those facilities. But people also are really interested in bike lanes. The people that are more comfortable riding on the road or who are going long distance, they want a direct route and they don't want to necessarily have to intermingle with families and strollers. So providing redundancy and providing different types of facilities is really important. And then how often do you use these facilities? Every day, a few times a week. This is a very active community. We all know that. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Matt here. He's going to talk about our methodology of how we identify the backbone network and how we kind of refine different facility types.
Hello, everybody. I was the planning lead on this project, and we worked together as a team to develop the project list. Kind of the basic approach was we broke up our project recommendations into kind of 3 different buckets, and one was the large backbone network that you're looking at right now. This one is intended to be like the highest comfort infrastructure, whether it's on-street or off-street facility. The on-street facilities are primarily recommended to be buffered, curb-separated bike lane, bike infrastructure. And then there are side paths, and then where we felt they could fit, there are also just shared use paths that are separated from the road entirely. Go to the next one, please. And then you have the local network. So this, when it's overlaid with the backbone facilities, really creates a complete system that can allow people to get to many different destinations. The backbone system itself, most homes are within a half mile of the facilities, and then when you weave this into it, you really have a lot of opened up access that's safe for children, for people of all ages and all abilities.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just a question. What do you mean by backbone?
Oh, it's just like kind of a plannery term. It just means it's kind of your core support, or your core infrastructure.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of like if you're using the metaphor of like a skeletal system, like you have your spine, you have the ribs, and then all the like extensions off of that. Sorry, that's just kind of planner jargon.
Sure, I understand it.
Yeah.
So, can I ask a question too? So, you call this multi-purpose trails net. I mean, I'm not a biker. I ride bikes some. But I spend a lot of time on the Murdoch Canal Trail, and I'm kind of jogging and walking fast as some people do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is kind of uncomfortable having high-speed bikers kind of zip right by you and praying they don't hit you.
Yeah, correct.
And so, do you, in your process, are you talking about wider pathways to accommodate that? Because obviously you don't want bikers on sidewalks and things.
No, yeah, kind of
to have the bikers and bike lanes.
Yeah, or if you're using a shared facility, like UDOT has increased the width of their standard recommendation to 12 feet from 10 feet. So where space is available, you can increase the comfort. But that definitely is a situation that isn't easily fixed, especially when you incorporate electric bicycles and just that into it. But there's things you can do, or you put up like the design. You can have curves to slow people down. You can stripe like bicycle lanes within the shared use path and have signage that directs people to ride their bikes this way for this direction, here for that direction. And pedestrians go on this side. And enforcement would be an issue, of course, but it's kind of like a community education as well.
I mean, biking's great, but they had a couple bikers that had on collision in one of the tunnels in the Murdoch Canal Trail, so it can be pretty dangerous. And pedestrian, that's kind of uncomfortable sometimes. So I just wondered if you're looking at that as well. Yeah,
and it's a kind of technical, like it just becomes a difficult question. Sometimes it's very context sensitive, like a tunnel. If it's dark, you can light it up, or you can widen the facilities. You can put in something that slows down cyclists ahead of times, so they're not.
I've noticed they put a lot of mirrors up and different things now, so you can see.
Yeah.
There, but yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm sorry.
No. Please.
Sorry,
I'm over code enforcement. I hear a lot of the complaints that the city receives. And one that came up recently that someone brought up was children on e-scooters riding on the sidewalk and plowing into people's mailboxes and destroying them.
Yeah.
It's hard for children who may or may not use the best judgment, who are all of a sudden able to go 30 miles an hour.
Exactly.
A lot of power without responsibility.
Yeah, and that's also where like the on-street facilities that are separated come into it, because the scooters are identified as a disruptive technology, and that's just because they just showed up out of nowhere, and you just get these issues that are really hard to solve. Like within Salt Lake City, they can do something what's called like geofencing, where you're putting a border around the scooter and prohibiting it from going over a certain speed limit, but that's not correcting kids from destroying mailboxes, probably, but yeah. In addition, we really wanted to make sure we addressed a lot of the safe routes to school, so all of our facility recommendations are covering the safe routes to school. Some of them are filling in gaps, but we're making sure that we're kind of overlaying them too, which can also help in the advancement of funding for improved sidewalks or other facilities like that along those networks. We go to the next slide, if you like. And then traffic calming. This is another bucket of recommendations which we wanted to keep high level. So we refer to them as traffic calming or crossing improvements. But these are at locations that we heard from residents and looked at the data where there is a need for improved crossings, improved safety, slower traffic speeds. And then one good thing for plans to help advance funding for particular projects is to create priority projects. We applied some planning level, high level costs to them and high level design. And these projects connect both cities very well. And then we gave you guys a series of toolkits to really help kind of move forward with measuring progress and going after funding. We have an implementation toolbox. We provided some general cross sections that can kind of help offer guidance on how to
in here, does it give some suggestions of grants in the past the cities have been successful on? Or is that in the study saying?
Yeah.
In the past, you go outdoors, whatever it is, they had the following funding. Because I think as we get this, because in order to get grants, we needed the transportation. Now we can go and seek some of the grant money to do some of these priority projects that have been highlighted.
Yeah, it's down a couple of slides or PDF pages. We just kind of have a snapshot of that. We provide a pretty large, extensive table of funding that goes from federal down to state level and local level. But yeah, so complete street policy examples, some traffic calming recommendations. You can go to the next slide if you like. So here you just have example cross sections of what facilities could look like and kind of the context where you want to put them in, traffic volumes, speed limits, and things like that. You can go to the next one, please. And then these are based off of the engineering specs for the city. So we are just kind of trying to provide some revisioning of what you can do within the right of way.
Okay, so we have a Highland Alpine. In Highland, we're saying 44 feet road width, 66 driveway. Alpine is 36 feet.
Yeah, 66 driveway.
But they have 66 driveway is all the same. But their side paths a little bigger.
Yeah, there's a caveat to the intro of this section where we adhere to the cross sections, except for some of the side path ones we provided. It probably would involve changing curb and gutter and doing some more heavy infrastructure changes. But these are just a couple. We provided a series of cross sections in the document. You can go to the next slide, please. And this is just an example of the traffic calming suggestions we make. You have your bulb outs, you have mid-block crossings, just things you can do at intersections, at mid-block areas that really reduce traffic speed and improve the comfort level of pedestrians and cyclists. And it improves the safety of the vehicles too. You get them moving at lower speeds, taking turns slower. So it just kind of benefits safety in general. And then this is just a snapshot of the grant funding matrix. So we list the source, we give you a brief description of it, we provide the known local match, and then the deadlines, they're kind of squishy, they'll change, but the most recent deadline we provide if that data is available. The source where we got it, so that usually can connect you to a bunch of different links too. And just kind of the general recommendations that these grants are used for. Or some are for very large regional projects, some are for more like parks projects, and in between. You go to the next slide. And then this is important when you're writing grants too. They want to know how you're going to evaluate the project if it gets funded. You're going to have to report back on the success of it. And there's just a handful of techniques you can use, and you can kind of cherry pick which ones you like. You can just measure the miles implemented, the amount of people using the facilities. We incorporated more complete streets language into this too, because that is a good tool to leverage for funding. And then your next steps, get the plan adopted, and then go after some money. And partnering is a big thing too, especially if you're going for regional projects. So working cooperatively with Alpine and other cities in Utah County to go after funds.
Just a couple comments. I really appreciate all the work you've done on this. Is there a way that we could get a hard copy of this for council members? I mean, to try to download it or just have a reference point here. I'd like to have, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like to be able to look through things and underline and do things. And it would take me forever to download this because of all the graphics. So that's just one thing. If we get a hard copy, I really appreciate a hard copy, and I'll pass it on to whoever takes my place in the future. The other thing is you're talking about equestrian issues. If you're riding a horse, my family used to own a lot of horses at one time.
Mm-hmm.
I used to ride horses. I don't do so much now, but it's really best to have a horse on a dirt surface and not on asphalt. Would it make sense if there's interest to have some dedicated equestrian trails in the city? Or, I mean, you bring it up, but people really don't like to ride horses on the street.
And we could just address that in a little brief narrative, saying where facilities are desired and where space exists. You could add an additional soft shoulder to the paved facility. So.
Or you can ride your horse. That's nice. I see people riding a horse at the Murdoch Canal Trail. But asphalt is just not a good service for a horse. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, I mean, we have one hard copy with us right now, so we can provide you with that, but we can definitely get you more copies.
I just came up to be available to answer any other questions you all may have for us today. I guess one thing I did want to bring up, just to debrief on our presentation to Alpine, I can't remember any of their specific questions. They were all generally very supportive, looking forward to adopting it as part of their general plan. They did have some comments about some of the crossing improvement locations that we identified, particularly along Timpanogos Highway. The way that we have it worded in the plan currently, it just identifies them as areas of improvement to improve those crossings. They had a desire to add in language that we wanted to look at grade separated crossings in a couple of locations. I wanted to get your opinion on that, if that's language that we want to add to this plan to actually study grade separation, like pedestrian tunnels.
So on Timpanogos Highway, S182, they wanted to have along the highway a raised area. Is that what you're saying?
Just across Timpanogos Highway, either a pedestrian tunnel that goes underneath so that people can cross north-south, or potentially a bridge, like, you know, not the UPS bridge, but the pedestrian bridge that actually goes over. So there's So there's separation from traffic at all times. You avoid that conflict with cars. There's a
Is there a
desire.
certain area when you guys did your study that you noticed that there's a lot of people trying to cross SR 92?
We don't have specific counts of number of people trying to cross. We heard that a lot from public feedback, that felt uncomfortable and dangerous, and it's a very long crossing distance, and that they would prefer something that felt more comfortable. But we didn't identify, we do have a couple intersections identified that we think would be appropriate for those, but we have the language in there fairly soft about whether it should be grade separated or not. There's certainly a cost associated with that.
Okay, so you keep using the word grade separated.
Bridge or tunnel.
Okay.
So.
Sorry.
Where did you recommend that? On, like North County 4800 West?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Let's see.
I wouldn't dare cross Alpine.
Yeah, and that's like,
That'd be taking my life and.
you can have like the most beautiful trail that you want to ride down, but if you get to something like that terrifies you, you're going to drive to where you want to go. You're not going to bike. So, yeah, that's part of like our objective is to incorporate things, recommendations that are removing major barriers for people. Something that you're creating a facility that you'd be comfortable taking your children on.
You know, I think it's a very interesting concept about the bridge. I think the funding, would be interesting to see how we can get funding. I think the warranting of it, I'll be honest, most of the time when I see it, I'm going, was that just a lot of taxpayers' dollars that just went and spent several $1 million to get some people across? And I recognize, though, one of the concerns when we met, as Active Transportation Committee, was how do we get people down some rock trails, trying to get everyone connecting down some rock trails. That would be something we have to look at, is what's the best way to connect. As you mentioned Alpine, they have no way to connect that rock trail unless they're going across SR92. So as soon as that comments come.
Yeah, if you go back up through the slides, there is one map with the kind of little blue stars on it, and that's where the recommendations are.
You want to go backwards, Jay, on that so we can see what the blue stars are?
And I think we talked very specifically about 2 intersections that seemed like good locations for
If you go back, they have a map that has little stars on it.
Okay.
traffic calming map.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, it's a little squish there. Andy probably remembers. I think we talked about 4800 West and possibly Alpine and 6000. Yes.
Yeah, the diagonal one, that's actually on the RTP as well, and I believe that is recommended as a grade separated facility on the regional transportation plan.
So you're seeing on the diagonal right here.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one that's the power line corridor?
Yeah, but any of them, I think, if you're going to make a few grade separated crossings, it's going to benefit both communities.
So other than doing a bridge across, what's another effective way to help people? I mean, there's an intersection. One of the big dangers we have at the 4800 West is we have a continuous right turn. There's not a breakaway right turn. So if someone's going to go across, that's a huge danger because the car coming is not stopping. Stop to go. And that's just to try to keep things flowing because we notice they come up SR92. Once they hit 4800, probably the majority, more than half the cars are going down 4800 per stroke of the canyon. So is that probably where Alpine's saying, hey, that's a pinch point, a very unsafe crossing?
Yeah, people said they did not feel safe waiting at the crossing, and then other people said they just didn't want to cross at all. Yeah. And then the one further east too, just an access point that could be grade separated right at the mouth of the
Do
canyon.
you know any of the numbers that people are, I guess you have the 72H and at 69H, do you have any idea of the number of people trying to cross those 2 points?
Pedestrians?
Now, that come there and not cross or turn, or just that there's pedestrians there trying to cross?
No, the only count data we received was of the Murdoch Canal Trail. MAG collects that. We didn't do any pedestrian counts.
We generally are, in many instances, getting away from using pedestrian counts to warrant infrastructure like this. It's hard to count pedestrians in an area where they're not comfortable crossing anyways and they just don't exist. We generally, we've had a lot of success in communities applying for grants to do grade separation by justifying it by saying this is in an adopted plan, this is a transportation goal of the city, bringing strong local match dollars. We just helped Park City win $4 million from UDOT to put in their third pedestrian tunnel that connects their high school across a major state arterial. So we've been really successful in identifying other ways to justify investment.
And we do have one pedestrian tunnel, it's the Murdoch Trail on the Alpine Highway. They zigzag and they come underneath the.
Yeah, well, and there's several actually, there's one under North County as well.
Canal Boulevard.
Yeah, so, I was just thinking, if you want to do a pedestrian bridge, it might make sense up by our public works building and connected in the trails there to go down into Cedar Hills and Highland, and they can connect to Murdoch County. Because there's a trail, you go under where it flooded, that's the connection underneath that North County, that we go right down into the trail system too, so. It'd be easier than up at this big intersection.
Is there any other questions from the council? We appreciate your presentation.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling we got two council members that aren't here. There might be some questions they have about this. You had a question about a bridge or things going across. I think council, if you want to chime in, is there support and even put that in the plan? Is there saying, hey, I think we need more information on that before I want to have it put in the plan? Where's your feeling on that?
I think we're in connection. I'm always in favor of that, especially when it means less traffic and more connectivity with Murdoch Canal Trail. So maybe a little bit more research into it, but I'd love to have it in the plan as long as it's within our budget.
Well, we'd have to have a match. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say maybe my recommendation for adding language to this plan would be to identify the 2 or 3 crossings that we feel like are, part of the backbone network, are going to serve a lot of north-south traffic in the future, and say we recommend studying grade separation at these locations, but further study is warranted.
So if you look at the location, okay, where can they already travel, if it be on the sidewalk or safely? Your North County Boulevard has pretty well, up until SR92, has safe passage. Does that make sense? And so the problem, I think, is coming down out of Alpine, down that Canyon Crest Road, is it's not wide enough. We have some, so that would have to be rebuilt. 6000 West is the same way. It still has some country. It's not been programmed in. Alpine Highway has 5 lanes actually programmed in. And so it just kind of, what would be your recommendation? Like I said, the Highland side, 4800 West, already pretty well is wide enough. We have good sidewalks on both sides. If people are trying to get down the Murdoch Trail, once you get them there, and there are problems in that section, they can make it down. It's just everything above to the north.
That makes good sense.
That's probably true across everything along SR92, everything to the north has not been programmed except maybe Alpine Highway. Is there a road you guys are recommending?
I think it's a problem, that's why I go towards the Mountain Canyon, out by 6,000, personally.
So you think 6,000? So now, I'll tell you why 6,000. 6,000, if they went straight down 6,000, they hit the Murdoch Trail.
Yeah.
If they also come down 6,000, they could head down, if the drive-through, depending on what happens, they could also go and hit the Murdoch Trail that way. They can kind of branch off and head 2 different ways. Now the problem is our 6,000 does not have sidewalks or a good shoulder from SR92 all the way down to the Murdoch Trail. There's not sidewalk or a good shoulder. That's the whole issue.
Yeah, so our recommendation in this plan is to turn 6000 West into a really comfortable active transportation backbone facility, one of those major north-south connections. So if we provide that type of facility, I think we're going to see major changes in what routes people are choosing, and there may be a future need for that grade separation.
But see, that's an older road, and there's a lot of homes reside with their driveways coming out on it. I mean, that's...
Yes, it is very nuanced. We realize that, yes.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other input? Need anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It is
Thank you very much.
It It's 6:55. We'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break and start the council meeting at 7 p.m. Okay, we'd like to go ahead and start City Council meeting. It is 7:06 p.m. on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. Currently at this time, we do not have Councilmember Brittany Bills, so we'd like to excuse her. We are anticipating that she will join us later on in the meeting. We will begin our meeting by having an invocation by Councilmember Kim Riddella, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by myself.
Our dear and gracious Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful to be gathered here tonight to be together as a community and to discuss the things that we need to do in order to progress and to come together as well. We are especially grateful for the many city staff and workers that do everything possible in order to make our city run smoothly. We say these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
If you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have several items that have public hearing notices on them. You're welcome to say your comments if you're here on any of those public hearing items. If you're not, we have time at this time set apart for time for scheduled public appearances, unscheduled public appearances. If there's anyone here who'd like to come and address the council on any item that we will not be holding a public hearing on, we'd like to invite you to come forward and discuss any item of the City Council. You can keep your comments in 3 minutes and introduce yourself.
I briefly introduced myself right before, but I'm Michelle Lyons, the new Vice President at the American Port Chamber of Commerce and the Low Peak Business Alliance. I know there's been some discussion about whether or not to continue funding the Chamber on behalf of the businesses. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions and address any concerns that you have. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Doug Courtney. At the community budget hearing, one of the residents expressed concerns about the state of maintenance of the roads in our neighborhood. and was told that we have a plan for road maintenance. Costs are higher than we expected. We don't have enough money to maintain that schedule that we had initially put out, so that's being stretched out. Essentially, the residents there just had to make do for a little while longer because we don't have enough money. We talked about the theme wall along Alpine Highway, and one of the main concerns there is cost, and that I think if we had unlimited money, that the city would be very pleased to put in a theme wall. As it is, basically told the residents that yes, we want to do something, we don't have the money, so we don't know. Essentially, they have to make do for a little while longer because we don't have the money. I'm very concerned that this evening we're looking at an agenda that includes the removal of the open space fee, which then backfills about $300,000 from the general fund. It just seems unseemly to me to give what amounts to a tax cut to a quarter of the city while telling everybody else you just have to make do because we don't have enough money. If indeed we didn't need that money for anything, telling people we just have to make do, we don't have enough money, is something that we can legitimately say if we're giving everybody across the city. If we have $300,000 that we don't need this year and we're not going to need into the future, we could give a tax break to everybody in the city. Come out to ballpark of $60 a year for each person or each parcel. That would seem like a reasonable thing to me. But identifying about a quarter of the city and saying, yes, we're going to give a break on fees here while telling everybody else, we just don't have the money, you're going to have to make do, it just really bothers me. I hope that it bothers you too, and I hope you'll think about that when it's time to vote on that item. Thank you very much.
My name is Lynn Ritchie. That was a great segue into my comments. You've all received my letters of communication that I've written, and I would ask that those be put in the public record. I've written 3 letters to each of you. I know you've read them. And you know, I'm just opposed to this removal. And the gentleman just spoke. We've said we don't have money to fix roads. We haven't fixed the trails, a lot of them in the open space. Why do we want to give up revenue that's there to be able to fix and do more maintenance, as I've expressed on the letter? I just feel it's wrong to, as he mentioned, to allow the rest of the residents to pick up that fee. The other is there unintended consequences. For example, Councilmember Bills will now have to schedule the basketball court for a neighborhood party rather than what they've been using for years. So there's some protections there for the open space people to be able to use that area then exclusively. So now they won't be able to, it's got to be scheduled. So the city's going to have someone schedule it. We're going to hire someone to schedule. So that's another one. So there's other alternatives, and the one I've expressed to you, to be able to go through them individually, it's just not that complicated. There's differences in the open space, I acknowledge that, and it's just not that complicated to go through them. And I would recommend changing the wording, a charge for open space, and that can be delineated and used deferred costs. And finally, since this affects all residents, why not put it to a vote? If you feel so strongly about removing this fee, put it to a vote and let's see what all of the residents feel about it. And I think you'd find a different answer because, as you know, the number of people here tonight and to all of the meetings. People just are not informed. And I think if they were informed and put it to a vote by then we know what the will of the people is. So, thank you.
My name is Ed Dennis, actually a former chairman of the Open Space Committee and former member of the City Council. By way of comment, I'd just like to thank Mayor Ritchie, who was instrumental in setting up the initial Open Space Committee with an effort to try to resolve many of the issues that were present at the time. Many of them over the last 10 plus years, almost longer than that, almost 12 or 13 years, have been resolved. The elimination of the open space fee is kind of the culmination of the issues that the open space community has faced within Highland. Just a couple of comments in regard to that. The open space is not exclusively reserved or used by open space residents. In fact, it's public property and therefore it's available for anyone who lives in Highland. And so in terms of fairness, it should be more fair to have all of the community pay for what's being used by the entire community. By way of reference, the recent referendum regarding the Wimbledon subdivision is a good example. Over 2/3 of the community voted that those trails should be maintained, which represents a significant favorable vote in terms of that being maintained for the entire community. So in response to a public vote, I think that's close to a public vote when that referendum was defeated, and therefore the entire community is using those trails. Maybe not every member of the community, but like every other fee that we pay, we don't always receive personal benefits, but the community as a whole is receiving benefits for those services that are being provided. And then in addition to that, I believe Councilman Smith has identified a number of other issues that favor eliminating that open space fee, which I won't take time to discuss. I'll run out of time to do that. But I think in terms of fairness to the members of the open space community, elimination of the fee is the right decision for the City Council and represents the entire community picking up the cost to maintain those trails as well as use them. And one last comment, in the Wimbledon subdivision and many other subdivisions, those parks are already being reserved by other members of the community. So I think it's fair to say that the open space trails are community trails and should be paid by the entire community. And thank you again for your help and support in eliminating that fee. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close the unscheduled public appearance time. And we'll move on to our consent item, item number 2, which is the consent item. Item number 2A is approval of the meeting minutes from, it would be a work session on April 24th, 2023, and another City Council work session, regular meeting on May 2nd. Consent item number 2B is a final plat approval of the Hawks Landing subdivision. Any of those need to be polled, or are you ready for, if there's any discussion, or ready for a motion?
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion. I move that the Highland City Council approve consent items A, which is approval of meeting minutes from April 24th, and a regular meeting on May 2nd, so the first was the work session. And 2, approve the final plat on Hawks Landing that we discussed at length in the past.
I'll second. I have a motion by Scott, second by Sarah. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and let's vote.
It's showing that they voted, but it's not. On my end, it shows that it was submitted. Does it show?
No, it's the new one shows yes. Go ahead, you can read it. Let's see if I can pull it up. That passes 4-0. Now we move on to public hearing and resolution, item number 3, which is for the financial year 2023's final budget amendments, which is titled our who's our city financial director, will do the presentation.
Mayor, before we dive into all of our budget things, I apologize if I missed this, but did you mention that item number 10 is being postponed, just in case anybody is here in regards to that?
Item number 10?
The
I did not, so
Mountain Fields.
we are going to be moving to at a later date, item number 10, which is an action discussion item on Lone Peak Fields agreement. That will be moved till July. So that will not be discussed tonight. We will answer on that. So we have item number 3, Tyler.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Great to be with you this evening. A number of items for your consideration this evening with financial consideration. We'll begin with the fiscal year 2023 proposed amendment. So this is the fiscal year that ends at the end of this month, and in July of last year. The council originally approved the budget for this fiscal year 1 year ago, and then amended and approved some adjustments at mid-year. So this constitutes some additional adjustments here to wrap up the year. First, with revenue, the amendments recognize some generous donations and some other transfers for Mountain Ridge Park for approximately $1.6 million. Also recognizing some revenue that came in for the culinary and water grants and pressurized irrigation grants. As far as expenses go, again, the transfers to Mountain Ridge Park, almost $1 million. That's $800,000 from the general fund, and $160,000 generated for the park tax. Next up, some work on the culinary well number 4, $500,000. That's work that was contemplated in previous rate studies, but postponed previously, and with revenue generated from the grant and from rates, user rates, excuse me, that work moving forward. Also have $400,000 for work that's occurred on 1600 West, but the city will be reimbursed for all of that, and then some. We anticipate that reimbursement in the first quarter of the next fiscal year. $173,000 to complete the bond payment for the building bond, related to that fee shortfall. The Northwest annexation, this is a fund balance, a fund that no longer has a purpose, and so those funds will be transferred to the enterprise utility funds. Flood mitigation, our public works team has worked hard, so this includes some overtime and other expenses related to mitigating and preventing what could have been a lot worse flood year here, so we're grateful for their efforts. Also, snow removal. This is, I guess, that was the chicken before the egg. The snow removal came first, and then flood mitigation. But snow removal at about $65,000 there. The higher snow that we saw this year. Also then some increases in pressurized irrigation, water share assessments. And then you see another additional amendments there for PI meters, finance consulting to help keep up with payroll processing. We're hoping that will be short-lived and the next fiscal year. We've got a full-time HR generalist working on some streamlining with some software to get the payroll processing done there. Traffic calming, Pheasant Hollow Station, street sweeping, street signs, building inspection, public works, temporary staffing here, personnel leave, and PI seasonal. Any questions on any of those items in particular? If you were to wrap up, culinary meter backflow valves compares to the court system, audiovisual. Culinary well number 3, reservation software that's up and running. Getting great reviews on that. Fire station exhaust system, that's the city's 10% portion. Most of that system was grant funded. And so that 6.5 represents just the 10% that the city was responsible for. Credit card convenience charges, that is actually, we are seeing revenue that offsets that expense, but this is just making the budget recognize the expense piece.
Now, that was going to be one of my questions. So this is the expense. There's revenue on the other side to offset this expense.
Minor adjustment for bond trust fees, and that's for a third party, in this case, Science Bank to administer a bond. And then finally, and this is a common caveat in each of our budget adjustments in the year, anticipating if the general fund balance exceeds the limit allowed by the state, which is currently 35%, that staff will be authorized to make transfers to capital funds. We do not anticipate that being the case this year with transfers that have taken place to Mountain Ridge Park. But if through the course of the closeout, that just gives the staff the authorization to transfer those funds where they can be used for capital.
So where do you think the fund balance percentage is going to be at? Are we down at 27, 28?
Yes.
So we ran the city for years at 25%. It's just in the last couple of years, I think, that the state says we reserve it to 35%. And I've never understood why we need to be at 35%. I mean, it's always good to have reserves, but if we went beyond below that, I don't have a big problem with that because we ran it at 25 forever. So
yeah. I think in response to some downturns, and certainly for smaller cities, those dollar amounts will disappear. But certainly the council's discretion within that range. We have to stay above 5% in order to allocate all of the funds that are budgeted for revenue. But between 5% and 35% is that standard.
So Tyler, as we look at all of our revenue for this financial year, the 2022-23, and we look at all of our expenses, and I understand you're just kind of looking at that, because we still have other things kind of moving right now. What's your forecast? Are we going to have more revenue when we do expenses, or are we going to have more expenses this past year than we do revenue?
For the general fund specifically, in general, we will show some net revenue thanks to sales tax. And that's before some of the transfers from Mountain Ridge there, but we've seen revenue come in higher in many cases than was projected.
Now we have, we put in here about impact fees. We did not have enough, but we also have building permit fees that we have set a separate account on. Those are going in a separate account, where in the past years it used to be in our general fund. We've moved that this year into a different account, correct?
Correct. And that's as required by the state auditor. We received some recent communication there in that regard, especially. So we have to show those funds, if revenue is not used in a particular year, we need to show that as a restricted balance, but they can be used in future years for building specific expenses. Great question. This screen shows a summary of proposed amendments, expenses and revenues, and then we included another column that indicates if there is prior year fund balance to be used. That fund balance figure is included in that middle revenue column. So the revenue and expenses in each fund, making sure that those balance. But then you see it on the last column, prior year balance being used for general fund, road capital, small amount for sewer, storm sewer, and then that northwest annexation that simply we're going to be transferred out to the utility funds. So any questions there? With that, I recommend that the council hold a public hearing to approve the resolution adopting the amendments.
So, and we talked about this at lunch and different things, because in the city, we put our revenues in parentheses and our expenses are not, which is always kind of opposite to what I've always done, but it's okay if I get my brain to work around it. But at the same time, we use the funds, the kind of the general reserve funds and all the enterprise funds and different things, because we've been building up those funds to do all these big projects right now. And so their money is there, and when we show later on in the not in the public hearing, and this maybe we'll do it in our public hearing, but later on in the session, when we see the citizens' budget, the people will realize that we kind of run the city on about $30 million. And so that stuff has been saved in a lot of these funds. At one time, there was somewhere close to $16 million in reserve funds. I think it varies between about 11 and 16. So we have the money there that's been saved for now.
Right. And that those savings allow the city to, in many cases, to pay cash rather than incurring debt.
And I think people need to understand that. The other thing is we're almost a debt-free city. We're going to talk about that soon, which is, I think, great because we're going to free up a lot of bond payments here soon. So,
2026 and 2027, those bonds are scheduled to be paid off. Absolutely.
Okay, is there any other questions before we go to public hearing? Seeing none, we will now have a public hearing on the financial year 2023 final budget amendments. Public hearing at this time is now open. Is there anyone who would like to come and address any items dealing with the financial year 2023? So this is the past year's financial.
Oh, past. Okay.
2022, 2023. Just like that.
Okay. Sorry, I'm excited.
I just have a quick question. How much is actually being transferred from the general fund to the capital funds? Or you probably don't know exactly because you're not at the end of the year, but...
For Elbridge specifically?
No, just the 35, to keep the fund balance at 35%.
For fiscal 23, we do not anticipate that because of transfers that the council has already authorized to go directly to the Mountain Ridge Park.
So Tyler, we were at 35%. During the year, we saw that we brought it down to 27.5, from my memory, and that between the 35 and 27.5 was moved to go to the Mountain Ridge Park.
Okay.
Does that help answer a little more of your question?
Kind of. How much has been transferred to the Mountain Ridge Park?
750, and then there's an additional 800 in these amendments.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm jumping a little bit into the new budget, but with the excess funds that the general fund is receiving, either in the forms of sales tax or other property taxes, there really won't be an increase in fees or taxes to the residents with the elimination of the open space fee. Is that correct?
It contemplated in the budget year for 2023-2024 that we will discuss. My understanding is we are not contemplating any tax increase.
Right.
And there's enough funds in there to take that $300,000 this year. However, it needs to be aware, just since we'll talk about that in another thing, it needs to be aware when we talked about where the state auditors made us move to a separate account some of the building permit fees. The building permit is also now supporting other expenses upwards of $1 million. If that building slows down, there could be a deficit in years coming that could swipe back the other way. I'm saying, yes, this next year, because we have Ridgeview going heavy in building, but in 2 or 3 years, you can slip the other way and have more expenses the other way.
Yeah, that's definitely cyclical. Okay, well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Is there anyone else like to come and address the council on this is on the budget adjustments for the financial year 2022-2023. See now, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion and vote.
I'm ready for a motion, you guys. I move that the City Council approve the resolution adopting the final adjustments to the fiscal year 2022-2023.
I'll second it.
Motion by Kim, second by Scott. No further discussions. Go ahead and vote. We do have a full quorum here tonight, so Brady Bills has joined us during this discussion. Okay. That passes 5-0. We will now move on. This is going to be a resolution to appeal the open space fee. We're going to have the attorney, but because of that, we're going to have to. The open space fee is the Highland Special Service District open space. Because of that, that is a district that we now need to I guess, would we just postpone city council? Rob, do we
It's on the street.
Okay, we need to have, we recess the city council, we need a motion to recess. We then will come in and we'll take our hats as the Highland Special Service District, Open Space District hats. So I need a motion to adjourn and recess this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Tim. Just a vote, local, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now recessed, and we are now convened as the Highland Special Service District, Open Space Special Service District.
The Highland City Open Space Special Service District. Thank you, Chair and board members of this district. I will be taking this first item. This is a resolution that has been prepared regarding the repeal of the open space fee. Long history on this one. I'm not going to recount it in any kind of detail. Just for the benefit of the residents, the Open Space District was created throughout the year 2000 to handle the city's open space districts. A type of development that the city allowed for a period of time that gave density bonuses in exchange for land dedicated to the city. And the district's boundaries were not the city, it was just those subdivisions that were doing the open space concept. When that district was created, the city council at the time adopted a $20 a month fee for those residents within the district's boundaries. That fee has continued changed since then. It's been supplemented from time to time with one-off transaction sales of open space and other kind of similar transactions. It has historically not covered the entire cost of the maintenance. There have been supplements from the city's general fund. So the district was intentionally created to contract with the city and work kind of as a partnership on maintaining those open space areas. So you've had discussions regarding the open space and the open space fee for a long time. The most kind of prevalent or prominent direction of the council was a work session we held on January 5th regarding the upcoming budget, priorities and goals, and one of the goals of the council was clear to have staff prepare the budget for the upcoming year for both entities, the city and the district, without that fee. So staff has proceeded to do that. We have, the next one. We prepared that, so that's removing the $300,000 approximate from the open space fee. Our proposed budget for both the district and the city, as you will see, both have made those adjustments. So that revenue is taken out and it's otherwise incorporated within the city's general fund. Just for the record, there's no outstanding, sometimes fees for districts will be used to fund debts, bonds, obligations. That's not the case here. This is just a fee to cover ongoing service, so there's no legal reason or impediment that these fees are not security for any kind of debt for the district, so there's no need in that sense to hold on to that fee. So we have prepared a resolution that will repeal that fee. This is not necessarily a public hearing item, it's just a resolution as the governing board of the Highland City Open Space Special Service District. Any questions for me?
So Rob, right after this we have a public hearing in the resolution. You're saying this is repealing it, but it's not a public hearing. The next one is, what would be the difference? Why is one a public hearing versus one not? Maybe share with that.
Correct. So the next item is the budget of the Open Space District. And just by state law, you must always have a public hearing regarding the adoption of your final budget for any governmental entity. Just the adoption of a resolution that adjusts a fee, that's not a public hearing. Much like this city, we've adopted, garbage rates and sewer rates, whatever. We'll go through a resolution that we'll adopt. Sometimes we'll take public comment, but you are not required to hold a public hearing when we make those kinds of adjustments to fees, with the exception of impact fees are all separate. So that's why this resolution is just whether to have a fee or not. And this repeals that, the proposed resolution. Your next item is that taking what you have, you've directed staff to do. So assuming that you are going to repeal that, staff is prepared to budget for the district, which you have to hold a hearing on just under state law.
I would like just to thank the council. This started about a year and a half ago, where the council last year voted, we were council, all 5 council members said, hey, we would like to remove the open space fee. It was brought up last year towards budget time. I asked as a favor that we take the time to let the public be aware, that we make it very transparent, that it's noted out there. So I just want to tell the council thank you. I know it was discussed again in January, and I know it's been in several newsletters, as well as I made sure it was also a newsletter in May. And so I guess it came out in June what we were doing. And so I appreciate the council taking the time to come together, look at this. As that, I do appreciate, even though I might feel different about the open space fee and how I do appreciate you guys being sensitive about this being a topic on that. So I want to tell you thank you on that. As we look at that, I do have 2 council members. There have been some questions that since we have some council members that live in the Highland Special Service District open space and they pay this fee, I do have 2 council members that have signed statements of Highland City conflict of interest disclosure forms. I don't know if there's other council members that wanted to get one.
Yes. I wanted one as well to make sure it's on public record.
Okay.
So everyone knows I live in an open space fee. I didn't want that to be any kind of secret. I wanted that to be.
So you'll be providing me with a letter on it, correct?
Yes, I sent it to Rob and Stephanie. I just need to sign it.
Okay.
I just need to get it printed out and signed.
I have one from Councilmember Kimardella and one from Councilmember Brittany Bills. I do want to note that on the bottom of this, and I think these are from both same statement from both Kimardella and Brittany Bills states, I live in an open space neighborhood. Given the nature of the fee, I am of the opinion that making the decision to repeal the fee is not a conflict of interest. However, ensure all state law requirements are met. I'm filling this out. And then that was on Kimardella's and on Brittany Bills. It states, I live in an open space section. Given the nature of the fee, I am of the opinion that making the decision to repeal the fee is not a conflict that constitutes a misuse of office for a public benefit or for a personal benefit. Tim, I also know that at this current time you live in an open space. I don't know if you feel like there needs to, you might even see the document came a little later today from Rob, so I apologize for that. It's just stating that you live in an open space neighborhood. This meaning that, as it's been brought up tonight, a quarter of the city, 25 to 26% of the city, pay an open space fee. About 74% of the residents do not. And that is why there's some conflict. They go statements of conflict of interest disclosure. I don't know if you want to make any statement on that or.
It's absolutely not a conflict of interest.
Okay. With that, is there any discussion that the council would like to have about repealing the open space fee?
Well, I'd like to make a few comments, and the council and the staff and people in the audience probably know where I stand already, because I've been pretty vocal. One, I don't live in an open space neighborhood, but in my various tenures on the city council, and it's been an honor and privilege to serve, I've listened to a lot of the concerns of the open space neighborhoods. And first of all, I want to say I love the open space in Highland. And I've used many of the parks and trails in the open space neighborhoods. And the concept of open space and this idea of creating open space neighborhoods was very well intentioned and I think it was good. The problem has been kind of the implementation and the design of some of the neighborhoods. And each one of these neighborhoods, there's 18 of them, were designed differently. And as Mayor Ritchie said, there's varying amounts of open space and amenities in each of the 18 different neighborhoods. But in 2000, as signed by Mayor Anderson, it's in our packet here of information, the open space fee was instigated. So when I came on the council in 2010, I heard a lot of people during the campaign in 2009 complain a lot about concerns about the open space, and I'm going to list some of those. And much of those went back to this open space fee. So I understand kind of the well-intentioned thing about the open space fee, but let's just talk about some of the problems. So when I came on the council, Mayor Ritchie and I and Tom Butler ran together, and Mayor Ritchie, because he was sensitive to the issues on the open space, established the Open Space Committee. Dennis was the first chairman I served on that committee, and we sat in many meetings and heard a lot of concerns of the citizens about things we needed to do to kind of remedy problems in the open space. Because of that, there were 3 ordinances that were passed, and Mayor Ritchie signed those, that first of all instated maintenance agreements, and also the way that we could surplus orphan properties, because there were a lot of little pieces of open space that didn't make sense for the city to maintain, but yet were kind of eyesores and problems. And also, we set up an ordinance where if the neighborhood came together, because they could be in different things, and they had enough people signing things, they could surplus like the trail, which is what happened 2 years ago and caused a lot of distress in the city. So perhaps we didn't make the best decisions back then, but I take full accountability because it was our attempt to solve some of the problems. The other thing is in 2010 or 11, we eliminated the open space zoning so that there couldn't be any more open space neighborhoods because of all the complaints and problems. So this is the way I look at it. I don't pay the open space fee, but one of the problems with the open space fee over the years is, one, it set an expectation that things would be better maintained than they can possibly be maintained with the size of our staff. And so this always generated complaints about, gee, there's weeds behind my house, there's weeds on the trail. And 2, with the design of some of the open space neighborhoods, there were a lot of people that were not real crazy about having trails in their backyard, especially when they weren't maintained. So that was some issues that the open space fee caused. The other problem is, and I think Councilwoman Bills and Peterson, when they worked on the encroachment committee, is the open space fee has kind of promoted encroachment in the city. And now we passed a new ordinance on that about a year ago, and we're going through neighborhood by neighborhood trying to resolve some of these problems. So as former Councilman Dennis said, over the last 10 years we've resolved a lot of issues. So why do I support removing the fee? Yes, it takes away $300,000 of revenue. And I disagree a little bit with the comment that was made by Doug earlier. Really, people don't pay the open space fee so that they can fix up the theme wall on the Alpine Highway, since we've decided that theme wall is really on private property by and large. But I'm on the committee, we're going to try to resolve that. The open space fee wasn't paid to fix the roads throughout the rest of the city. We have the road fee, which has been successfully passed, plus we have E&C road funds, and so we spend close to $1.8 million a year trying to maintain and upgrade our road system, which is fairly significant. So the $300,000 for the open space fee was never meant to fix up the roads in the rest of the city. So I think we need to keep it in context. If we look at the citizens' budget, which we're excited about presenting later on, you'll find that the city, as I mentioned before, basically has a budget currently of about $30 million. So this $300,000 is like 1% of the budget. So where does the money come from? We've talked about in the past maybe establishing an overall park fee or something like that, maybe $5 a month. But we don't have to do that because there's been indirectly some sales tax fees that have come in that are generating a fair amount of income. And they're designed for improvement of the trails and the parks. And many of our parks and trails are in the open space. And as former Councilman Dennis said, all those trails and parks are fully public. And if they're fully public, it makes sense to me that everyone should help pay for them. I think the open space fee has ran its course. It's a very small part of the budget now. And so that's why I support it. So I'm going to go to this issue of fairness. And I have a hard time understanding, and I'm going to give some examples. We're building this gorgeous Mountain Ridge Park. We're doing it without bonding. We've done it through various grants and by selling some land and by donations and different things so that we wouldn't have to raise a bond for it. But there are beautiful neighborhoods around that park who are going to be heavily using that park more than I will use it, but they're not going to pay a fee to use that park. How is that fair that people in the open space neighborhood has to pay a fee to maintain their city park? So I don't know. For example, Highland Glen Park, I live by it, 100 feet away from it. I walk in it daily. Okay, there are 4 neighborhoods and the new Ridgeview neighborhood. They're going to heavily use it. Are they going to pay an open space fee to maintain it? No. So you can go back to this fairness and kind of bat it back and forth. For example, Hill Hollows, which is being built just east of Wimbledon, south of South Canterbury, and just west of Hidden Pond, all three open space neighborhoods, they're going to be heavily using the parks in their adjacent neighborhoods. Are they paying an open space fee? No. In fact, there is open space that came with the neighborhood, including the trail, and who's putting it in by and large is the city. And all the citizens are going to be paying for that. So my feeling is the big reason I want to eliminate the open space fee is it's been a source of constant contention in the city the whole time I've been associated with city government. I've never heard anybody complain about the road fee. I've never heard anybody complain about any other fee, the public safety fee, which are really, they're the same size in some ways. But we've had lots of complaints and contention about the open space fee. I say we don't need it now, let's eliminate it. We've been counseled on all levels of government and through religion and different things to eliminate contention. I think it's time to eliminate this contention now, and I think it makes good sense. Now, the fact that, yes, we're always going to be tight on the budget. Yes, there's always not enough money to do everything we want to, but we're gradually, we have a plan for the roads, and the last, what year are we in it now, Andy? Are we on year 6 or 5?
I think this is 6.
Okay, and we're going through and resurfacing a lot of the roads, and people have been very grateful for that. But again, the open space fee was never designed to resurface the road. So I think we have the funds to do that. And so I've said I'm in 6, I've said it many times, but I think it's time to eliminate it now.
Thanks, Scott, because you said a lot of what I would have expressed myself. So I'm just going to second what Scott said and add just one thing. Probably being the newest member of Highland panel, when I came in, to me it was, however well-meaning, was a gross misappropriation of taxation in the first place. So to allow 1/4 of the residents to pay for space that is not solely the use of those who are paying for it, but is open to all residents, is not right in my mind whatsoever. And so, because everyone, the neighborhoods who pay this, the residents who pay this, have zero exclusive use, have zero right to use or reserve. So I think you mentioned the basketball court, that now we're going to have to reserve it. It doesn't matter, because if someone in the city comes in and is already on that area, there's no exclusive use for the residents who live around it. They can't come and say, hey, you need to leave because you live in 2 neighborhoods over and you're not in the open space area. There's nothing like that. It's available at any time for all residents, even if some don't use it more than others. To Scott's point, there's some parks that I have not utilized yet. There's other parks that I have. I know just behind my house is an open space, and many times people from, neighborhoods over are having little soccer practices there. It's not reservable. It's first come, first serve. So because it's available to all residents, it needs to be appropriated through our taxes equally as well. So I think it's a gross misappropriation to have 1/4 of the residents paying for what's available for the entire city. So I just wanted to add that, and then everything, again, second to what Scott says.
So I'll also agree with both Scott and Sarah, and I will say that this has caused me a little consternation, and I thought about it a lot, especially after I had a nice long conversation with Lynn Ritchie. I thought about everything that you said, and I still think that it's the right thing to do for all of the reasons that Scott and Sarah have mentioned. I also want to make it clear that then the proceeds that have come from open space sales will go back into the general fund. And so there's that as well. And I also feel like it's unfortunate that I have to say this, but I feel like I did not run for city council to get rid of a $20 open space fee think that it's fairly insulting to think that any of us would run for city council for $20 a month.
I just agree with everything that everyone else has said, so I can kind of leave it at that.
My shortest comment ever, ditto.
Okay, I think with that, there's a couple things. I've chimed in on different, as we've had different work sessions, that I recognize, like I said, I'm probably the one that's in the council that sees things a little different with open space. With the open space, one of my concerns is what's happening now. We say about the injustice that's happening with the open space fee. I'm worried that at the same time we're now creating an injustice going the other way. I see there are some open, here's where the problem I think we've had as a city. There are some open space subdivisions that you're going, why would they ever put in some open space subdivisions, such as Canterbury North or Beacon Hills or some things that way. They really, the design did not function the way I thought it would work. However, it appears, for me, the concern is we now are moving, what we would say there was an injustice here, we've now moved it on the other side to where there's now creating an injustice where in some subdivisions, I believe there's going to be a lot of space that people, when I say as a whole, really can't come in and use because it's behind or it's small areas behind people's houses or it's smaller areas. And I will not have a park in my neighborhood. And it feels like I'm going to be paying for that open space in the other neighborhoods. And so that's some of the concerns it's had. I get though, I try to broker to one city saying, hey, is there a way that we can keep some of the subdivisions in the open space? And I recognize that has, what I was trying to propose at first is saying, let's look at, there are some subdivisions that benefit greatly by that open space that's really not benefited by the public as a whole, as I see it. Maybe keep those in. I recognize we've had those discussions. And I do appreciate it. I don't believe this is not something just talked about tonight. It wasn't just talked about in January. I think every one of the council members, I've had conversations 1 or 2 times. I've driven with several of them to the different open spaces to try to say, hey, let's look at this. You've shared your input. I've shared my input. I think it's something that's been, this is not a fast decision. And so I do appreciate the council taking the time. You've listened to me. I know we maybe don't agree on this. But at the same time, I just want to tell you thank you for taking the time to let me kind of advocate the way I saw things, but also hopefully you felt like listening to me back. So if there's...
Can I make another comment? I want to tell the mayor that I think he's great. and we may disagree on this, but we're still good friends. And I think we've all listened carefully to what other people have said, and in my heart I feel this is the best way. So there's a couple of things I'd like to say quickly that I forgot. One, there was always this idea that the open space fee would kind of help mitigate the fact that the people in the open space were on smaller lots. But as we analyzed it, actually property tax is based most on what the structure is, and then second of all, where the location of the neighborhood is. So we found, interesting enough, that people in Highland Hills with very small lots were paying almost as much, if not the same property tax as people with 1 acre lots in the center of the city. So some of that argument there never held, and I think we have to look at that. The other thing is that never has brought up, but the people when they bought in the open space neighborhoods, they knew there'd be open space, they knew all this stuff, but I can't believe that the developers just donated that open space to the city. Those citizens that bought homes there helped pay for that open space originally. So there's been a lot of changes over 20 years, but I just think in the end, let's eliminate the source of contention and move on. That's what I think.
Okay, if there's nothing else, is there any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? We need a motion and a vote.
I'll make a motion. I move that the governing board of the Highland City Open Space Special Service District adopt a resolution repealing the open space fee.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Sarah Peterson, second by Scott Smith. Any other discussion? No, let's go ahead and have a vote. That passes 5-0. We are still in, as a special service district, we will now move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing or resolution for the financial year 2023-2024 open space budget. Tyler.
Thank you, Chair. This first slide, Rob did a great job of covering the history of the district, so we'll belabor that. But with regard to the budget that we're presenting to you here for the open space district, it is included for convenience in the overall consolidated budget for the city as well. So revenue highlights, as you just directed and affirmed, direction to the staff, removing the open space fee. Total revenue for the district is anticipated at approximately $760,000, most of which will come from the general fund, but $10,000 each anticipated in interest revenue and also in property sales. Expense highlights, consistent with the other salary-related items in the budget. 4% salary increase is budgeted. Medical benefits in general includes the 4% renewal rate for medical benefits. Seasonal wages are included in the open space budget at $220,000. So with that, recommend the board hold a public hearing and consider the resolution to adopt the proposed budget.
So I'm going to ask you a quick question, Rob. Yeah, the question I have is if we've eliminated the fee, I know we have to vote as a special service district, we've eliminated the zoning for open space neighborhoods. Do we really need a special service district, and can we eliminate that in the future as a council?
No, in fact, I think the plan is to begin the process. Without getting into the process, there's a process we have to go through to dissolve a district.
Special service district.
And it may not happen for a little bit just because of the way the process works. But that is kind of the status and the plan is there is no more need for it. We're just not going to be collecting any funds. We don't want to have to prepare a $0 budget for it year after year. We would recommend if it's not going to collect fees, it's not going to provide a service to dissolve it just for voting.
Because everything in the open space is public.
Yes, it's owned by Highland City. The district was created to help do service. It doesn't own any property.
Right.
It has funds, and that's about it.
When will this go into effect? Will this affect the July 1st billing?
Yes.
Yes. So we queued up our utility billing. Hats off to Candace and your team to make sure that we're ready to go either way. But anticipating the council would, and that the board would remove that fee, so that will be reflected on the next bill.
Okay, with that, we need to have a public hearing. So at this time, I open the public hearing for Special Service District, the Highland Open Space Special Service District. Does anyone like to come up and address the council at this time?
Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize so much time, but I would just like to express my gratitude to the City Council for eliminating the open space fee. And I would put my vote, or whatever you want to call it, favor of eliminating the special revenue district. Again, it would be nice to eliminate open space terminology from the city so that we're one community rather than two communities. And I would be strongly in favor of eliminating the district. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public hearing, bring it back to the council.
Well, I'm happy to make a motion if people are happy. So I move that the Special Service Board for the Open Space adopt the resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-24 budget for the Highland Open Space Special Service District as delineated in the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Scott, second by Kim, which we used to always recognize. Okay, let's go ahead, let's vote on this. That passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item number 6, which is a public hearing resolution of adopting the financial year 2023-2024 fee schedule. We have Candace Linford, which is our city treasurer here.
Excuse me, do we need to make a motion to leave the space?
Oh, we do. I'm sorry, I need a
There's
motion
on the
to
screen for you.
We gotta come back after our recess. I'm sorry.
I'll motion it.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Kim, second by Scott to move to adjourn the Highland City Open Space Special Services District meeting or reconvene back to the Highland City Council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now back in council session.
And you also know how many times Kim and I are agreeing, so.
Yes, that's what I said. The last time that was.
It's our night, Scott.
Tonight's the night. Okay, so we do have a public hearing on adopting our fee schedule. And Candace, we have our city treasurer will do that presentation.
Hello, Mayor and Council. We put together the fiscal year budget, or sorry, the fee schedule for next year. And just to highlight, Council has provided direction regarding various fees assessed by the city. This one being the open space elimination. Staff has reviewed fees and recommended changes based on current costs. Key changes include the park impact fee. There will be an increase from $5,854 to $6,301 for single-family residences. Culinary meter fee or water meter fees include rates for larger meters to cover current cost. PI meters, same thing. We did reduce the 3/4 inch meter, which is typical. That is what residential homes typically have. So that's a great thing for residential. Cemetery, every year perpetually increases by 3% for the funding plan. Portable toilet maintenance for field rentals. So currently, I should say last year, we had split the cost 5 different ways. There were 5 different people on the fields, and we have found that we had to increase cleanings and that kind of thing. So rather than divide it equally amongst all parties, Highland City will divide it equally between the renting party and the city. So it'll be a straight 50-50. Interlibrary loan increasing from $3 to $5. Campaign finance disclosure late fee, it's a new fee, $50. Lot parcel combination. This is also a new fee, but not unusual. Kelly did call this out. This is the same process as a parcel boundary adjustment, therefore the fee should be the same. Our city council adopted an ordinance that allowed lot and parcel combinations to not go through the plat amendment process. So this is just basically calling out the specific combination.
Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
For that field rental, the portable toilet maintenance, that's divided equally between the city and the rental organization. Do you know how much that costs the city?
It's so $145 for the unit fee that we pay per unit.
$145. And how long does that portable toilet stay on there for?
A month, or as long as we need it to be there for the rental, the field rental. Typically it's spring, so it's a 3-month period.
Well, so the question might be, why, if you have a person renting the field, why are they not bearing 100% of the cost? Why is the city bearing 50% of the cost?
Good question. That is how we set it up originally when we did the field use policy. When you think about it, it is not just for the games or the practices, it's not just their use. They are there. They're not locked, and those fields are used by Highland City residents. Pretty much anyone who has a hankering or need to stop by a toilet.
So this would actually increase what we're going to get out of it, because right now, like Candace said, if there's 5, we split it between 5, but honestly that becomes really complex to do in a billing situation. So now actually if there are 5, we're going to get half of 145 times 5, right? And so it actually will increase the revenue to the city and just make it easier so we don't have to bill at the end of the month. We just bill them right when they want to reserve it.
So what fields require the portable toilet then? We see that for a couple months.
Low Peak will always need those unless we build restaurants there. That's the only one other than potentially Wimbledon. We have set a bucket there as well. Beacon Hill until the weather turns warm, because we don't want the lines to freeze, and Heritage Park. Although our agreement had been with Lone Peak Youth Baseball that they would get the unit when they had priority on that field. So.
Yeah, because that portable toilet is on the school district bill, city property.
Yeah, that one's not rented by the city, to my knowledge.
Good to know.
The maintenance, sorry, were there any other questions before you? Okay. Maintenance agreement application, it's a new fee, $25. However, I believe that this was adopted under the encroachment policy and maintenance agreement resolution, so we're just calling it out. We're removing the open space fee, and this is kind of good news, which is why we're calling it out. Garbage and recycling, no change, and that's fantastic. So those are the highlighted changes.
So can I just make a comment? Sorry, I have to keep running out. I'm unfortunately on call on top of everything else tonight. And they never call me and tell me, they called me twice in the last hour. I can't believe it. The ER's busy. So anyhow, the park impact fee in years past until recently has always gone towards paying off the bonds, if I understand correctly. And we've decided, because we're getting a lot of park impact fees, we've kind of changed a little bit. We're going to have enough money to drop all the bonds by 4 years from now. But we're going to be able to use some of this park impact fee to make improvements, if I'm saying this right, Aaron. You can't use it for maintenance of current parks, but you could build like another pavilion in Highland Glen. You could build some picnic grounds. I mean, you could do some things to improve the parks. And I think that's pretty exciting. And so the way we're going to improve some of our long-standing parks is not only with the park tax that was passed unanimously by a vote of the citizens, and by using some of the parking fees, but still paying off all of our bonds on time. So is that right? Am I thinking correctly? Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, any other questions concerning the fees? Okay, with this is a public hearing. We will open this up for public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to come up and address scheduled fee for the city? Seeing none, we'll close it and bring back to council for your motion or discussion.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the city council approve the resolution adopting the revised consolidated fee schedule.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Kim, second by Tim. Go ahead and vote. That passes 5-0. We're now on item number 7, which is a public hearing resolution of an inter-fund transfer from the pressurized irrigation funds to the general fund. Tyler, will you explain what we're doing?
Thanks, Mayor. So the city is required to charge itself for PI in winery parks, but also allows the city then to transfer back from PI from pressurized irrigation. So it requires a formal action to do that. The transfer proposed is an estimated, is the estimated cost of $108,000 of watering public owned property. Users of the pressurized irrigation system pay a lot of bulk areas approximately $2 per month for each customer. If you do not make this transfer, that would be another $108,000 that the general fund would have to subsidize. Happy to take questions, but other than that, recommend that hold a public hearing and authorize the proposed transfer.
We're just repaying back the city for the water with the pressurized irrigation system transferring to the general fund.
That's correct.
Any discussion before I have the hearing? We'll now open up a public hearing for the resolution of the interfund transfer from the pressurized irrigation fund to the general fund. Public hearing is open, and we'd like to come and address the council. Close the public hearing and bring it back for the vote. Need a motion? Make the wording of the motion.
I'm happy to make a motion. So I move that the Highland City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the transfer of $108,000 from the pressurized irrigation fund to the the general fund for the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Scott, second, once again by Ann.
It's our thing tonight.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and vote. Passes 5-0. We're now on to the item number 8, which is a resolution adopting the financial year 2023-2024 certified tax rate. Tyler, talk to us about our tax rate.
Thank you, Mayor. Certified tax rate, as you know, is kind of a summary of the property tax that is assessed to residents in the city. For your reference, this is the certified tax information for the current fiscal year. So calendar year 22, generally what folks will pay and what they would have paid in November 2022. You see that it's broken out by general operations, and then a portion is dedicated specifically to the library. So with no further ado, the great reveal is based on information received by the county within last week. So you see, of course, since the city is not anticipating, it's not proposing a tax increase on existing properties, the rate itself actually goes down because property values have increased. We'll note that the amount you see here is reduced slightly by about $48,000 based on the information we received from the county just this last week. So we thought that would be closer to about $2,050,000, but this the information came a little bit more, so that's the only change with regard to property tax that we included. Hope you have sharpened your pencils because there's time for a quiz. Here, if you assume a property valued at $950,000 from the city of Highland in the current calendar year, the fiscal year we're discussing, how much property tax would come to the city of Highland for that property? I'm guessing we should be provided.
0.00794.
Do you want us all to guess?
Yes, please. It wouldn't be this much more if you didn't.
Okay, everyone guess. What do you think? You're looking for an amount, but you want
No cheating.
a dollar amount.
No looking it up.
No, I'm not cheating. I'm using my reference guide. It's a great question, Tyler.
$29.50.
$4,780.
Well, are you talking the portion that comes to
Highland City?
$95, 96.
754.
Oh, the portion that comes to Highland. 661.
Hold on.
We're all over.
I have to
I
look
can't
at.
read it for so long.
What was your guess, Tim? $7,761.
All right, I think, Kim, were you the 661?
Yeah,
Pretty close. So here's how it works, $950,000, 55% of that is
Oh, that's
tax.
Oh,
So the tax value is roughly $522,000, okay?
Charge it full market if you want.
I was good without the 55%. Oh.
Certified tax rate, and you just multiply that dollar amount by 0.000794, 415.
I was kind of thinking the library portion, I'm sorry. Which is a little less than that. So.
Good question. That was a good question.
Thank you very much. So I recommend that the city council approve resolution adopting the certified tax rate.
Is there any other discussion before we adopt
I'd just like to make a comment. So they adjust the certified tax rate. It took me a while to kind of figure that out. So if property values are assessed higher by the county, they lowered the rate because they try to give us the same property tax plus a little bit of room. It seems like it always goes up a little bit, but our property tax, unless we raise it and have a hearing and all that stuff, the only way it gets greater is from growth. The growth is only counted for what the homes and the property is present at the first year. So if you had built a house and it was there by January 1st, 2023, you get taxed, or did a tax thing in November, right?
That's correct.
So a lot of the growth that we're seeing, like in Bridgeview during the summer, there's been a lot of homes going up right now. That won't get taxed until the year after.
That's right. Okay. And my heart goes out too, and I appreciate the work of the county assessor's office with a lot of growth in the last few years. How they've assessed everything is just amazing.
So Tyler, can I ask a question? Maybe get it, make sure I have I'm just going to use it so we have it $1 million home. We had 55%, so my home is now going to be valued at $450,000. I have no new assessments at all, meaning that the county still says my home is still worth the same as what it was last tax year. My taxes would physically, they would go down this year because the tax rate went down. If there was no new assessment on my home.
That year, your taxes would, on average, stay the same.
It's the same.
So I missed, okay, so if I paid on that home, well, maybe we'll use their $950. I paid the $441 last year. It's to stay the same in the $441 this next year. It's all even. It's just the way they're doing it. We're staying even.
You will see from home to home or area to area within the city some fluctuation. Maybe there's a portion of Highland that's appreciating at a different rate. So if our neighbors across the street, their home value went up dramatically more percentage compared to another portion, then yeah, you might see some fluctuation there a little bit. But overall, existing homes, the same revenue is collected by the city. And so all things being equal in terms of appreciation, or its appreciation, then the city's portion will stay the same.
Which also means, Tyler, that the city is making do with less because those property taxes aren't indexed to inflation.
That's correct.
Well, the other thing is I think people oftentimes look at their total property tax, and I think in the citizens' budget, which you're going to show a little bit later, when I was on the council with Mayor Ritchie, I think we collected about 16.8%, if I remember the total property tax. Now we're at 10.4. You have the graph. And so in the background, the school district keeps raising property tax. The county puts some little stealth increases because they divided their tax into two pieces and things. So I think the citizens say, oh, gee, I'm paying a lot more property tax, but it's not coming to Highland.
So one thing with Highland, let's kind of look at the big picture as a whole. You have to raise, in a sense, you have to raise taxes. What's happened is the city is generating more sales tax. So sales tax has helped compensate. But we have to be more transparent. A lot of the cities do not have a road fee and do not have a public safety fee.
Right.
Where we've come in, we have a road fee, so that's not part of our general fund. We're funding the roads, and we have a public safety fee, which is there. And so sometimes we're probably going to show as one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the county in our certified tax rate. If we transparent, we need to bring those other two fees in and say, now if you brought those two other fees in, we'll probably be towards the top quarter, just to be transparent. We're not bottom, we're not middle, we're towards the top quarter with all those extra fees. So,
And I just like to add something to it. So, since Pleasant Grove won on the state Supreme Court on their road fee, I own my grandparents' home in Pleasant Grove, and what was my former grandparents' home there, passed on. But at the same time, they talked about it in their newsletter, and they're going to institute a much bigger road fee.
Oh, are they? Yes.
Tyler, would it ever make sense to, while the mayor's talking about the public safety fee, would it ever make sense to change the public safety fee so that the public safety fee is actually covering all the costs of public safety, so it's more transparent that way, whereas now it pays for part of it and then it's subsidized by the general fund?
It certainly would make it easier to show a one-to-one relationship. Whereas right now there are multiple sources that contribute to funding public safety.
I think it would be something we're looking at next year to make sure that we are maintaining the level of funding that we need for public safety without sacrificing the general fund.
It'd probably be good if you could do that. You want to lower the general fund down.
Yes.
And then you'd say, okay, and then you just keep raising that fee based off of what the public safety cost is what you're saying. That you take the total amount of what public safety is, right?
Yeah, it seems like that would be a more transparent way to do it and an easier way to keep up with the public safety needs if we know where that money is coming from or where it's going.
And also maybe more transparent. I mean,
Yeah.
One thing, because we have a district, or I guess we're part of the Lone Peak Public Safety District, a lot of other cities in their general fund might fund some of their new equipment for fire replacement. They might fund their fuel. Ours is very transparent. We're paying the district, and that's exactly everything that's costing actually. There's a little more transparency that we can maybe bring to it.
Can I just ask a couple of questions about that? So I'm not opposed to that, but the question then becomes most of the Lone Peak Safety District is funded out of our general fund, which is funded by property tax and sales tax and then some franchise fees and a few things. So are you suggesting if we went to a total fee for public safety, then would we lower property tax, or how would that work? I mean,
If the council, I think that if you were looking, if the council wanted to say whatever the cost is for public safety,
right,
we have a fee to cover the exact cost, I think we have to lower the tax, because that's, like you said, we're compensating so much out of our general fund to go towards.
So that would be a big fee, a big jump.
So your fee might go up to $25 to $30 a month, maybe $40 a month. Yes. That might be $40 a month for public safety, but your tax hopefully, it's just a talking point.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do it, but it just seems to me like otherwise we don't really know year to year how much we're taking out of the general fund to pay for public safety, and if we just kind of had it all coming in one place. I don't know, just something to think about. Not for tonight, Tyler. I don't think you should do that in the next 10 minutes or anything.
Food for thought, the public safety fee covers about 20%.
How much?
20%.
Yeah, that's what I thought would be a change.
But I mean, you really do, and we borrow from the general fund, and then that number fluctuates every year, and it's hard to know.
Another thing you could do to try and make it more transparent, the state now allows cities to dedicate property tax to anything, right? Before it was just libraries and a few things, now you could do it to anything, so you could do another split off, right? So you have library, public safety, and then general. I mean, it does show in our budget, there's a line item, right, for fire and police, right? And those expenditures just get transferred over to the public safety district, right? Or Highland City technically writes the district a check for that. So you can see the expenditures pretty clearly, but the revenue you don't necessarily see separate.
So it depends if you're the property owner or the renter. Usually the renter pays the utility fees, and so they're paying all the others, where the landlord pays the property tax. And I think we actually have quite a few rental homes. Just big picture. We're thinking big picture. One thing we have to be careful with, here it is, we're getting ready to get ready for the budget, is this year, as we look at this new budget going in, we have looked and we've moved a lot of expenses from our building into, we have building fees that we have building check fees or permit fees. We've moved a lot to try to have it aligned there. Once building slows down, you're going to have this cost, and you might not have the revenue matching it, and there can be a swing in the business. Right now, we have rigs deploying 150, 200 permits a year, where we traditionally had 70. So there can be a pendulum swing. You've got to be careful it's coming down the road. Okay, let's get going.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move the city council approve the resolution adopting the certified tax rate for Highland City as .000794.
Motion by Kim, second by Sarah. Let's go vote. That passes 5-0. Now on item number 9, which is the public hearing of the financial year 2023-2024. This is the upcoming budget adoption. Tyler.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So this is a culmination of I think, an exciting and productive budget season. So my thanks to you, Mayor and Council, to Aaron, and to our partners here in this room, and those that are not. It's been a good experience. So, by way of review, the council approved the tentative budget on May 2nd, as required by law. A few changes that have been instituted since. Property tax, as we noted, was reduced the estimate by $48,000 based on the county estimate. Sales tax was reduced from $4 million to $3.9 million, as we see indications of the economy potentially slowing. Benefits costs, which were estimated at 10%, to medical benefits have come in at 4%, so that reduction is also reflected. Garbage hauling, the expense for that has been reduced by $50,000, and then an item for which we hope to get a good return in the form of grant revenue, $75,000 for the first 9 months. 3 months are already in the budget, and so we've got $75,000 at Mayor and Council's direction.
Does everyone see this bottom line? Last year we had a lobbyist, we paid $100,000 to. We paid all the way through September. We believe there's another project that we can meet in October. We originally did not have that in the budget. The $75,000 should take us from September all the way till next June. So that's something you'd have to decide if you want to fund. But as we talked to David Stewart, we can make a decision in August. It doesn't look like we can either. He believes last year, just those who are here, we paid $100,000 to lobbyists to go out to try to get some grants. They were successful, and we were able to obtain a $1 million grant to help build towards one of our wells. The same lobbyist, David Stewart, had mentioned that he has some funding that helped us on the other half of our well, but that funding does not come available until October of 2023. And so we need to hire a lobbyist to help us go through that grant process similar to last year. Am I saying that correct, Andy? That David Stewart or Andy Met?
So this is putting it in the budget, but to actually hire him, do we need to have that come back?
That would be in the end of August, but there was a new contract, which then we're putting money in the budget, so we're not reading the contract, but we have money there to do that lobbyist budget.
So, and we just add into that too, and I'm forgetting the exact amount, but we've got between $5 and $7 million in grants to help with the pressurized irrigation, with the culinary water well. I mean, it's our staff has worked really hard to get funding from the state and the federal government, different things, so it's really supplemented our city finances greatly. So, Andy, you can maybe speak on that, but you've been instrumental in getting a lot of those grants. So, you know, when I was on the council back in 2010, we eliminated the lobbyists. Of course, we were really tight at that time, but this lobbyist has really kind of paid tenfold, so I think it's worth continuing to do that as long as we think there are some really good grants out there. Now, there'll be a point where we don't get the grant and we start thinking, well, maybe that wasn't right, but so far, it's paid off.
Yeah, this year he's given us good indications that again, we should see a beneficial return on our investment, so to speak. We feel good that there's another amount of money that we'll be able to qualify for, and you know, with his assistance, hopefully obtain that grant. So we feel strongly that this is a good move this year.
Just, Council, you might not know where there was another incident that came up. We used David Stewart on. I think it came that first week. We always watch the legislators, and we worry about if something also gets put in some legislation right at the last minute. Well, there was a vote that was going to happen on I think it was going to be a Thursday morning at like 11. Friday, Wednesday afternoon, we're getting some words about some things that changed in the bill. And we, you know, David Stewart was grabbing some, the legislators up there, we were grabbing with Brady Brammer, you know, Mike Kennedy. It was all hands on deck to try to get, it was dealing with the Blue Bison about connecting into 2 cities. And so our lobbyists kicked in and got with some of the others. That bill was defeated. They changed some of the wording. I'm just saying, you know, you might not be aware we went and grabbed Dave on some things where there's a bill that could possibly affect us and Alpine pretty heavy. So.
Can I make another comment? I really appreciate the job that Tyler and the whole staff is doing. I appreciate all that Andy's doing. But, you know, 3 years ago, when COVID broke out, we were in holy panic. We thought sales tax was going to go down. That fiscal year 21, if I remember correctly, we actually gathered $500,000 more in sales tax. The next year, it was $300,000 more than we budgeted. So, you know, it's hard to predict the future. We tend to budget conservatively here because we like the upward surprises, not the downward surprises. But at the same time, chances are we may do really well on sales tax. We may know what the economy does. And who knows, maybe like a little more property tax when they get everybody assessed and things, who knows? With the growth and different things. Certainly with the growth, in another year we will. So I'm always kind of an optimist because I've watched good things happen to this area and good things happen to the citizens in the budget.
Agreed. By way of summary, in each of the funds we've shown here, this is information that's in your packet. The next slide will have a few other funds as well. We're showing the total expenditures, total revenues, and that revenue line does include, in some instances, use of prior year fund balance. So that's the last column you see there. If there's parentheses, you see the general fund that we're actually anticipating net revenue, so almost $62,000 left to wrap all expenses. Building capital, approximately $900,000 of prior fund balance, prior year fund balance being used. Park capital, related to Mountain Ridge, about $1 million. Culinary water, including grant and user rates, they're 1.5. So those positive numbers do indicate prior year savings is being used or anticipated for use in this upcoming fiscal year. Others that you would note, of course, pressurized areas to those grants. Sewer, we're anticipating $250,000.
Just since you hit pressures, the reason, once again, parentheses is a positive and non-parentheses is a negative. So we spent, we spent an extra $2.5 million, but that's because we got grant money last year paid by the federal government, and so we're outspending what we got in that grant. That's why it's at 2.554 dollars.
And it comes out of the fund balance of the reserves. Okay.
Storm sewer, there are about $250,000 of fund balance being used. And then building and development, that fund that has been newly created. We'll see where development activity goes in the next year. We have budgeted conservatively, but anticipating using a portion of the reserve or the fund balance that has been accumulated in the prior year and the current fiscal year to fund some of those operations.
So Tyler, I know you're showing revenue, but is that, so I'm talking the building development, the 992, is that using prior year savings to help get to that? So you need to be aware, we did not generate 992 in our building development. We are, I think last year was like $538,000 that got moved into that account. We could not touch. And so we are showing expenses this year to be able to grab that. How much was the revenue other than, was it just, what was the revenue we generated for that building this year, or what's projected from the building department?
I have to look at the activity. We have seen a lot of recent activities. So the last couple of months, there's been $80,000, $90,000 per month in building permit, where for a number of months we're lagging considerably.
So this is where, that's the one account we've got to watch, is it can go flopping on us if building changes. That's the, I'm just trying to bring that up. That's the area we've got to watch.
Absolutely. And that new fund that's been created will facilitate monitoring and then keeping up with those expenses to make sure that we have revenue sufficient.
Okay.
Drum roll. We want, guys, you're see for the first time, I think Highlands ever done is a citizen budget. It is a kind of a step down. If you don't live it day in, day out, how can you read our budget? We want to appreciate Tyler Barr, our city financial director. He has put together a citizen budget for this upcoming year and is about ready to present it. Go away.
Thank you. For those who may not appreciate every digit of every 46 page of the spreadsheet, this is your document. And Aaron is passing out the drafts there as well as we're going to look at in just a second. So, very pleased to present what we have all, including you, Mayor and Council, have been working to produce. The citizens budget, page by page, the first page after your cover there includes a snapshot of Highland at a glance. Demographic profile information and identifies the major services provided by the city. I think it's pretty remarkable. You consider those are here a dozen different businesses, basically. Business lines are different in many cases that come together to provide a quality of life for the residents here. The next section here is an overview of revenue in general, not specific figures in terms of dollar amounts yet, but a breakdown of property tax, as we talked about, Highland sees about 10% of the property tax, and this was according to last year's breakout. I would expect that to be a little lower this next year, so only about 10% of residents' total property tax coming to the city. Some information on sales tax. Not all of that goes to Highland, but we're grateful for the portions that do, and some directed specifically to transportation and those. And then acknowledging some of the major sources of revenue. Utility franchise taxes, user fees, building impact fees, and some other funding that passes through from the county and state agencies. We then have transportation and those, and then acknowledging some of the revenues. You can see their utility enterprise funds are the largest pot. There are a lot of great work going on. Pressurized irrigation and the other utilities. General fund includes quite a few functions as well we'll touch on. Capital and road fee funds, and then a number of other smaller funds that we felt important to kind of put in perspective the other activity that's going on, building and development, cemetery, library, and then now our tax at $150,000.
I'd just like to make a comment. So over the years, there's been a lot of discussion about the revenue for the library, but this shows it in perspective and things. It's 1% of the city budget.
Yeah. And that's helpful. It's good for numbers geeks like me to step back a little bit and to see from the big picture how it all fits together. So this slide here is page 5 of the document that details the expenditures. You'll see, of course, it roughly mirrors a lot of what's going on in the revenues, but calls out specifically where those funds are being used. Pressurized irrigation, culinary water, kind of priorities, public safety, of course, in the general fund. So hopefully that gives a high-level snapshot that residents can understand where the value is coming from the tax dollars being used. Here on this page, we've identified some of the major projects and initiatives. Another opportunity to point out what value is coming to the city for those funds being used. We're excited about the Mountain Ridge Park, the bonds being paid down, parks building that will allow our park staff to spend more time caring for the grounds, less time transporting back and forth, improving safety and walking around by participating in a grant, irrigation water, library. She's got some great pictures if you'd like to see them. The carpet's going to go a long ways to be replaced in the library. A two-way texting system to encourage engagement with residents. A number of road projects that are ongoing. Trail maintenance, of course, is always a priority. And a general plan update that will help the city better plan for future development coming up. So hopefully if given 30 seconds, this would help you explain and communicate to residents, both as council and staff. Here's some things that we're very proud of coming. Some acknowledgments here. You might recognize some of those photographs. They're in, of course, staff as well. But with that, happy to present the citizen budget. It is a draft. So if you have any changes or you'd like to replace your photograph or whatnot, if we could do that this week, we would like to get that posted here with the new fiscal year for residents to have access to the document. So.
I'd just like to say I'm really pleased. I've been asking for this for a while, and I think you have it. It's very clear, it's concise. Just people really haven't got time to go through every line of the budget. That's the job of the city council and different things that we've been working on that for months now. But I really appreciate your efforts. I'm really pleased, and I was so excited when I found this.
He was so excited.
And I let everybody know. Yeah, I was so excited. They said, "Where is it?" And I said, "This is where it is." So thank you very much. One other comment. You have some nice summary tables showing how money's going in and out of different funds, expenses, revenues. We've talked about the fact that we're pulling on the reserves. Again, I think it would be helpful for me, and maybe I missed this, but I think at the end of the fiscal year, like on June 30th, it'd be nice to know exactly how, I know things are changing constantly, but it'd be nice to know exactly how much are in each one of the reserves for the general fund and for sewer and the enterprise funds. Just say it's a snapshot in time, we know it's changing, but just on June 30th, this is how much is in there, okay? And that's just helpful for me to know, because a lot of times the citizens don't realize that we've saved for some of these expenses, and it's just nice to know how much is in the savings. And the savings, the reserves, aren't they kept in the state fund, basically? Do we get interest on it?
They are. It's about the...
Yeah, and now interest pays quite a bit.
Right. We're 5%.
5%. So, and, ballpark would be nice just to present that, because it's some millions of dollars.
It's, I think, always the end of June is a little hard, because this is our conversation we had, I think in September, October. We started getting something last year, and I know it's the audit that kind of locks it all in, because that's always January, so we also get the audit. So I think we're just saying, I know last year, Tyler, you gave us some ballparks, so we started getting that August, September, as you could forecast what was, they get spent with things, we kind of started getting forecast budgets and so on.
Yeah, and it's also nice to know exactly how much left we have in the bonds. So we got bond payments in September, and then we got 4 more years, and they're totally paid off. It'd be nice, I think we're at 5 million something, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
In total, we're around 4.
So we're coming down again. Okay.
I mean, I think as you look at the system budget, Mountain Ridge Park is being paid with cash. We're not going into debt. The new park building is going to be paid with cash. Our irrigation, we got some good grants on. The two-way texting, I think several of you are aware that is going to be implemented when it's close.
I got designated as the official contact today with them, so it's an active process.
The trial maintenance ongoing, like you said, the bond debt. Scott had mentioned this earlier. We actually have generated from all the building permits we've gotten enough to pretty well retire all the bonds, but we cannot prepay the bonds we have found from our bond issuer. They will not receive prepayment of bonds. But we've now passed an ordinance that we can take some of that parking impact fees and move for improvement. That was a change we did it early in the year. All the parking impact fee was going to pay off the bond, but once we recognized correct me if I'm wrong, but we have enough funds to retire the park bond in savings right now, and that's why we're looking saying, hey, we can't pay it off for 4 years. They will not allow us, they will not receive the money. And so we're going to forecast, be very concerned, we might use some of that money to finish the park on Mountain Ridge, understanding that's going to be also replaced to go back in for the building.
And then we can use some of the money after that park's done to do some improvements in some of the other parks.
And then the walking routes, that is also once again a grant. I appreciate Andy, you brought that up. We've got safe routes to school, we've got some grant money that's coming from there. Famous carpet at the library, I think that road projects, upcoming general plan update, we've had trying to get done forever.
And tell us, Tyler, how much are we going to get from the county past 5th?
About $150,000.
$150,000.
We'll start seeing that money halfway through the fiscal year we confirm with the state.
Right. Plus we have the quarter-cent gas sales tax that was passed a few years ago that generates approximately $150,000. And then on our park tax generates $150,000. And the citizens voted for that unanimously. So we have these other funds that are helping us with our parks and trails.
We
I
appreciate it.
just want to say thank you overall for the whole budget process, Harry and Taylor. It was really just super smooth, well done, easy to understand. I really appreciate it, John. Really well done, thank you.
So just because we have a representative here from the Multi Chamber or the AF Chamber, in our budget, we do not have, once again, the AF Chamber funding there. It's not something we can look to do a budget adjustment later on. It is not currently in our budget adoption. Is there any discussion on trying to include it? Or I sent you some emails earlier today. I know there have been some discussions. I talked with the chamber there with Josh and with Christina about some of our concerns. We had a discussion last year. I didn't see a lot of changes this last year. That's why we didn't put it back in after that discussion for a year. But I know that Michelle is here. We're going to have a public hearing on this coming up. That might be something to decide if we want to put that back in. So is there any other discussion? We need to have a public hearing. Tyler, do you have anything else you need to discuss?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. With that, we will now open this up for the passing of the 2023-2024 financial year's budget for the city. The public hearing is open. Does anyone like to come to address the council on that?
I'll make this brief. Sorry.
So please just state your name one more time.
Sorry. My name is Michelle Lines. I am the new Vice President of the American Fort Chamber and the new liaison of the Lone Peak Business Alliance. Mayor Osler did send out an email with some information Josh and Christina put together stating the value that we provide for the Lone Peak Business Alliance. And if you just want to flip to the back page, there's a membership benefits summary. The membership value is $3,500 for a year. And just to maybe give you a look at what some of the other cities in this state, probably around your same size, put into their chambers. I worked with Santa Cruz City, who's very small, probably have less businesses than Highland. They put in about 6,000 to their chamber. Saratoga Springs puts in about 5,000. So it's very similar. But the benefits, I feel, after having worked in different areas and different chambers, the Lone Peak Business Alliance and the American Fort Chamber really pull out all the stops when it comes to value. There is an opportunity for Mayor Osler to put in a message to all the cities in this area in the directory that comes out, our annual magazine. And that's really great because it allows all the residents in this area to see what amazing things are happening here in Highland, as well as the state of the cities, where either Mayor Osler, I believe this year we had another representative come from Highland. Was it you, Representative Peterson? Yes. And it's a great event where the businesses get to come out and form relationships with the cities that they operate in. Are there any questions about the value that we provide? We would hate to see that funding go away at this time, because that means that we can't put as much time into Highland. If that's not there, we would probably put our focus elsewhere, but we don't want to do that. I personally, since I've come on in March, have spent some time getting to know the businesses in this area. It's a beautiful area. I'm from Payson, but I love spending time up here because the people are so lovely and the businesses love doing business here. And so we'd love to see the economic development in this area continue to grow because we've seen a lot of your revenue comes from sales tax. And so if we can put together a strategic plan and maybe some goals for an economic development to increase those sales taxes, we'd love to see that. Thank you. Any questions?
We'll address that.
Thank you.
This is still a public hearing. Anyone else like to come address the council? Okay. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Closing the public hearing.
I have a comment because I was really of the mindset that maybe we shouldn't do the Chamber of Commerce. But I think I've had a little bit of a change of heart. I think it's worth giving it another year, especially where they've committed to pay more attention to Highland. They have a plan for that. So I really appreciate just their engagement since they found out that we might not pull that. So I'm certainly open to that and would like to bring that up for discussion to see if anyone else is open to that as well.
Maybe I'll share with why we did not, just be very transparent. In the last year, I discussed, with the chamber, Josh and Christine, who believe that we do not believe that a lot of the businesses on the Highland have been approached, or when we were doing open houses, they were not aware of any businesses opening up. In a sense, we were sending the money, but there was no business thing coming back. And so as a council, that's why that discussion happened, is because any open house they participated in, it was us grabbing them to come out to do. In anything to kind of deal with other things with the chamber, they help Alpine with their Halloween event. They help Cedar Hills with their fun days. They help out. Now, I always took that was because they saw it as a revenue source. They put together the book. Some of you need to be aware that we put a book together for our Island Flame. In the past, my understanding was the chamber, or Josh was there to help do that, and that was a fundraiser for the chamber. But we took it over. It was before I was in the council that the city took it back over, and we've used that for funds to be able to do our flame. And so that was some of the things we talked about, that $3,500, not doing it for the chamber, but doing something directly to just we would have our own. There would be special lunches with some of the businesses, invite them in. But at the same time, there is value to chamber brings. I know when we talked about it, we were all wondering, should we stay? It's hard to say you don't want to support a chamber in your own community because they're supposed to help foster the business. But on the other hand, they're not helping foster the business in Highlands. They don't seem to be coming up in Highlands. I was being very transparent. They don't show up. They haven't been here, and they want to keep having money. But yet we want to support them. And that was the issue we talked with them about last year, and that's where the council where we're set out right now.
Well, I think we can readdress it, and I agree 100%. But I believe in repentance. Maybe, because if we decide to go ahead and we want, he expressed some very strong concerns we had at the council. We didn't think we were getting a lot of help from the chamber. So
now Michelle was not present. They have hired Michelle to kind of hopefully focus a little bit more on some things. It's unfortunate. I think that American Fork has really grown quite a bit. It's their business, and they're trying to do a new building to kind of foster some things. So they have some vision down there, but that's, so the council, we need it's $3,500. I know it's not a large amount. Some of it.
I still lean towards not doing it and see what we can do ourselves this year, just because as I'm looking through some of the benefits, each city partner will have 2 seats at the Utah County Women in Business event, at the golf tournament, all of those things. Those are all great things, but to be honest, they benefit individual council members more than they benefit the city as a whole. Some of those do. And so I guess that is one of my concerns, just as I look through the list of the services they provide, is what of those are for the city and what of those are we not able to do ourselves. So, I'm not totally set on it, but that's my 2 cents.
As you can see, here we are arguing over $3,500 out of the $13 million budget, but I think it's important to discuss.
So, could we, if we have more discussion in the future in an amendment?
Oh, yeah, you could always amend the
budget. You
budget.
don't have to do it tonight.
Yeah, you could always amend the budget, include it even if it was in July. And it's not a But you get it.
I'm fine giving them one more chance for 1 year to see what they can do, especially with the new hire. Knowing that we haven't been satisfied and this was on the chopping block, maybe that'll be kind of incentive to help us out a little bit more. So I am in favor of doing it for you.
I'm in favor.
Okay, so if we're going to do it now, as part of the amendment to the budget, if you want to include that, you'd have to include the $3,500 and the chamber in that motion if you want a part of the budget.
Would that mean I would have to vote against the entire budget?
Oh, I guess we could do it separate. If that was, we could, Rob stepped out, but I guess.
But it's not in the agenda, it's a separate item. I think it'd be better just to look at it in the future, near future.
We need to put it in July?
Yeah, because it's not in the agenda, is it?
No.
Okay, so you couldn't really make it a separate item to vote on, because it's not really.
Well, you're voting on the budget, so it'd be something you put in the budget.
No, but I don't think.
Vote on the budget and the next meeting, do an amendment to the budget.
Yeah. Like I should do an amendment to the budget, and we can really.
I mean, you can definitely amend the budget. We certainly wouldn't expect you not to be able to right now. I mean, in this meeting, if you wanted to take or add anything out, I'm just not sure about whether it should be a second motion or not. Probably not, Stephanie, right? So it should be one motion tonight with any amendments you want to make on the budget.
But I think Brittany's saying, well, that means she would then vote against the budget, that one item, so there should, that's what she's voicing, because that could be the no.
Depends on how strongly you feel about that one thing. That's hard.
And it depends if another council member is part of the budget.
Hey, Rob.
First time, I apologize.
We've been debating
Some
on,
council might want to add some money back in for the chamber. Is it possible for them to do two separate motions, or should it be one?
I just wonder, Rob, if I was going to vote against the chamber situation, if that means I have to vote against the whole budget.
Oh, you could do a motion, an initial motion to, propose it, adding in the 3,500, see if that passes, and then allow the rest of the budget to go forward.
So amend the motion.
so first you would do a motion to include the $3,500
Yes.
for the American Fork Chamber or Lone Peak Chamber Alliance in the budget, and then if that passes, then you can decide.
And then pass the budget with that, or if it doesn't pass, then just pass the budget as presented.
I'll do a motion.
Okay, does that answer your question, though?
Well, kind of. So then, let's do this motion and then I'll ask my question.
Okay, go ahead and do it.
I move that we amend the budget to include the $3,500 for the membership in the American Fork Lone Peak Business Alliance. Chamber Alliance.
Okay, I have a motion by Tim, second by Sarah. Any other discussion on that item? Do we just need to do a roll call, so we don't have an item for that? Okay, I will start here with Tim.
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
Brittany?
No.
Sarah? Yes. Okay, that passes 3-2. Okay? So that's after we put it in the budget. My understanding is we put it in the budget.
So now that is put in the budget, and if I disagree with it in the budget, I still vote for the budget, because now it's just part of the budget.
It's not part, correct?
You can also add a comment on your vote if you wanted after, whatever the vote is, to explain why you made the vote. So you can say, yes, though I still oppose this, or no, for this very specific reason, if you wanted to explain it. Or you don't have to explain it.
Thank you.
Does that help the council?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, with that, I think we've already had our public hearing, so we need to have a public hearing on it. Is there any further discussion about our budget adoption?
I'll make the motion if you like.
Okay.
I move that this Highland City Council approve the resolution adopting the amended, is this right? Fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
I'll second
Okay, I have a motion by Scott, second by Tim. Further discussion? Seeing none, let's go to vote. Your thing says no. I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, it won't let me vote.
We can't vote.
It's just you roll. Oh, wait.
Okay, great.
There you go.
That passes 5-0. Any items why you voted the way it was, it states.
I made my point on the last motion.
Yeah, and there's no open space fee in this budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Once again, item number 10 has been moved to the, that will be coming up in the meeting in July. We now go on to item number 11, which is contract with Eccles Paving for 10400 and pulverizing and repaving. Andy?
Yeah, that's right. Just move forward, that's good. Yeah, just next slide. Okay, so the council hasn't seen the specific section of roadway, but the tentative budget, well, the tentative with credit slides, the budget just approved, has road maintenance money in it, and so next slide. What we're proposing is that the section of 10400 North, that's basically between Mitchell Hall Park and Freedom Elementary, be reconstructed. This section of road was actually scheduled to get a next year. We moved it ahead because this little stretch didn't do very well last winter. Those in the area know there were several potholes and it's got a number of cracks. And so we're recommending we move ahead and redo this summer because, as you know, this is a major collector for the city and this affects a number of the citizens. So we're recommending that we move ahead and reconstruct this summer. Answer your questions you have.
Okay. Any other questions on the paving item?
We go back to that slide, Jane.
Yeah, this is right by Kim's house.
I just wanted to see if my house is there. Okay, Jane.
Right that road, right till you come out.
I'm really excited about that.
Okay, is there a motion? At this time, just knowing that Councilmember Scott Smith is not current for the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, he is not. Scott Smith is back.
I'll make a motion. I move the city council approve the contract with Echoes Paving for paving on 10400 North in an amount up to $271,645.70 and authorize the city administrator to sign the contract documents.
I have a motion by Brittany. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Go ahead and vote on this.
Do I need to do a conflict of interest on this since it's right by my house? Okay, just making sure.
That passes 5-0. Okay, we now move on to item number 12, which is a contract purchase authorization for a native area tractor mowing. Before we turn this to Andy, I'm going to ask him, did we have a tractor go down?
We did have a resident complain about a tractor going down with pictures.
That's just a couple slides. There you go.
Oh, here's the picture.
These tractors broken down. How much have been broken down in that spot?
Just a couple of weeks. We actually did a tire for it. Oddly enough, so it sat there for a couple of weeks, just dead line. So that is the very tractor we're talking about, right? Replacing is the infamous broken tractor on the side of the trail. Council, what we did is we looked at our budget at the end of fiscal year 23 and we found some funds that weren't actually used. And we had set aside some funds just in case we took over the maintenance down at the equestrian center, and that didn't materialize this year. So we were able to find funds that we could replace this tractor. Last summer we had an employee get burned. And another tractor failed that he was using to mow native grass area while this thing was broken. And then here, about a month ago, we had an employee injured when he was mowing under trees, and the tractor caught a branch, broke the branch, and then he went around and he got a pretty good gash in his head. And so what we're proposing is to replace this tractor with one that is more reliable and provides a cab for a safer working environment. And so we're hopeful to avoid those injuries in the future. In addition, it is a much better work environment than a closed cab. This is a very dusty and for those of you that have allergies, very difficult job if you have allergies and they're exposed to all dust and grass and things that are out there. So we have the funds and tractors available, so we can pick it up before the end of the budget year, and so we're recommending approval.
So Andy, let me ask you a question. So the purpose of having this enclosed area is to help protect the employees.
Yep.
What is that glass made of? How resistant is it to trauma and different things? I mean, you had an employee that cut his head and different things. I mean, is it protective or
it would protect. I mean, if we ran it into a tree, it's going to smash similar to an auto's windshield, right? It should shatter like an auto's window. But
so it absorbs the impact.
Yeah. What it will do is if we were going into branches and things, we'd scrape the top of the tractor rather than scrape the top of the employee's head, essentially. It will. It is a little taller. It will push us away from the trees a little bit, but we feel like it's a much safer work environment. And we've had a couple of incidents that involve the old tractor. We feel like it's time to put it on surplus. And not that we're voting on surplus tonight. That would be the logical conclusion. You would see that old green one in a future meeting to put on surplus, and then we have the new tractor that would be more reliable operationally and safer for the operator.
And then you buy a new attachment for it?
Yeah, we're buying the mowing attachment with it off the back. Is that what you're asking?
Yep.
Yeah. So it'll have. You can see in the picture. Our current one has the blade behind it. This one will have the same type of blades. Just a stock picture didn't have the blades.
Hey, Andy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Oh, do you know when you might be able to move this tractor?
I think they started today. They got the tractor
Did they get it?
tire. I think it moved today. They got the tire. So it should have moved today.
Is there any way we can retire this tractor to Heritage Park to be used for mill driving and maintaining that road?
This is a little larger tractor. I don't know if you want that large tractor on the field, do you?
I mean, that's what I was going to say is I'm open to discussion if this is a functional tractor for something like that, like if it would work. And I think that that's a discussion we'll be open to because it's still, works to some level. I just don't know how much mobility, how tight they need to turn, those type of discussions. But I'm not close to the thought. It's more, would this actually work and from there, I think
Well, the guy that drives it, this has a PTO on the back. There's some safety issues. How this might spin it up, lift them up and down. And they can't just get on it. They've got to understand how the tractor functions.
Yeah. So I would concur just in the fact that we would need to make sure that this is actually the right vehicle for that use.
What would we do? Would we surplus the Greenland or would we use this in other areas?
Assuming that we didn't use it for anything to do with the field, we would just surplus it. The new one would take the place of it, and we would, at that point we'd have more maintenance bills than not, just trying to keep.
Well, my concern is that they keep scratching everything. They're going to keep breaking that windshield. After you're not going to replace the windshield that's open. And I just, if we keep getting limbs keep getting hit with someone sitting there, how I understand it's going to hit this first. But is there some reinforcement that we can put up here so it doesn't keep breaking the windshield or keep destroying the tractor?
Certainly. If we have a problem with it, we will look to retrofit it. Our first hope is that we're able to avoid it, but there is some things that are kind of right in that, kind of above your head level that you might not see. But, we try to be very protective of our equipment generally, but especially the brand new stuff.
How smart is this tractor? Can it drive itself? Does it have
I can drive it.
Artificial intelligence?
This isn't any of those ones. This is one that's just started up and steered. This one doesn't park itself or anything. Fancy stuff on the car.
We can let Brittany go down the bottom on the back side of Dry Creek area.
Yeah.
It's a big open area. You can go and mow that.
I drive tractors at the ranch.
Yeah, you can come be the first tractor driver.
That's not true.
I want to be the second. I like
Yeah. Yeah.
See, she's not that hard.
Any discussions on the track? We
You can have council tractor day.
Yes.
And
Maybe that's what we ride the parade in.
There you go.
We could be throwing candy out with the new tractors. That's fun. I would like that. Shows the kind of work country you do. Okay, any discussions on this Kubota tractor, council? If not, let's go. We're ready for motion.
Go ahead.
Let's do our theme again.
Okay.
I move that the city council approve the purchase contract with Bonneville Equipment Company in an amount up to $43,000 and authorize the city administrator to sign the purchase documents.
I'll second it.
Motion by Kim, second by Scott. Ready for vote.
I need to vote verbally on this one.
Okay, we'll wait for all the votes to come in. Okay, reading bills, what is your vote?
Yes.
Claiming bill. And that passes 5-0. Now on item number 13, which is approval of the purchase of 3 2023 Chevy Silverado pickup trucks, which are now Fords. We used to be buying all Fords.
Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from this because I'm a Ford.
I might have, if I was, I have all Fords too.
Well, we'll tell you the story on these. Generally, we have actually bought Fort as a city, and knowing that we've had some pre-order issues, meaning we've ordered, we had to wait for the pickups, we went down to kind of get things queued up. We knew, there was money in the budget, to get the price and everything, and the dealership said, well, we're happy to get you some Fords, but would you be interested in looking at these Chevys? They had a bulk order that somebody ordered and then canceled, and so they're selling us the diesel pickups for $1,300 more than they were going to sell us the gas pickups, and so it's a heck of a value, and diesels pull a lot better, and so we think it's a wise purchase for the city. It represents a substantial value.
I mean, each vehicle still costs $56,380. They're still pretty expensive.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
So these are
these are 3/4 ton, 4-door, long bed diesel.
4x4.
4x4 pickups. That's a good deal. Yeah. In today's world, for
I was looking at pickup trucks, and that's what is that?
56,390.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought
Make it four. I'll take one.
We don't know how many. So, is there a motion or any further discussion?
I have a motion.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? How many years do you anticipate you'll be using these trucks?
All these ones with the diesel engine, and the diesel will stay around for at least, I would think 15 years. The diesel engines go a lot longer, so I think we'll have these for a substantial amount of time. Okay.
I don't have a Ford truck newer than 20 years ago. Anyway, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the City Council approve the purchase of 3 Chevrolet pickup trucks in fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $169,170 and authorize the city administrator to sign the associated contracts. Do we need to specify the model numbers? Not silly, but no? Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Tim, second by Scott, the Ford guy. That is, let's vote. 5-0. Okay, we move on to item number 14, which is an action item, consideration regarding the UDOT Master Landscape Maintenance Agreement. And this will be Andy also.
So a little background that's covered in the cover sheet, but one of our developments, the David Weekly Homes, which is right at the corner of 10100 North, just south of Lone Peak, was approached by UDOT about 10 days ago. When they started to put in their landscape, UDOT told them that they needed to pull a permit for installing the landscape, and they would not grant that permit until the city entered into this master landscape agreement. We subsequently made a phone call to UDOT representatives and said, well, we'd be interested in changing this item or this item or this item on the agreement. And basically, that went very politely but curiously. We've already worked with half dozen cities on formulating this agreement, and the agreement is what it is. And so we are unwilling to change it. So at this point, we bring this to you recommended because it is very important to the city, as expressed by the council, to have the various UDOT frontages landscaped. And this is a new requirement from UDOT in order for the applicants to put in landscape to qualify the permits.
So I met with Andy kind of a few minutes during lunch hour. My concern with this agreement is UDOT has deep pockets, we don't. I'm just a little worried about when they put in a stipulation that they tear out the landscaping that we've been maintaining, the developer put in, that we're responsible to put it back in. So that probably doesn't happen very often, but it kind of annoys me when these government agencies that have much deeper pockets than we do kind of put mandates or stipulations on us, and I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but I guess there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I echo your concern and understand your concern, and that's really my comment is, given at least the initial reaction from UDOT to my outreach, I don't know that they're going to be willing to change that provision. Generally, my experience in the past is that if UDOT's doing a project, they'll repair the landscape that's left over from the project, but they will take out the landscape, widen the landscape, do what they have to do without compensating the city, but they will usually, in most cases, repair the landscape. So I think that provision, while it's in there, is one that we probably wouldn't see them use. But certainly, if they have to come and, let's say, widen it for an additional lane or a turn lane or something, they wouldn't be giving any compensation to the city for the landscape that they would take out. That would be just within the portion of the road, the frontage that UDOT owns. The portion that's on either city property or an easement, they would compensate for or fix. This is just relative to the property UDOT owns. Along most of UDOT streets, well, we have a 29-foot parkway detail. The first 8 to 12 feet is usually in UDOT's ownership, and the other remaining portion is in either city or private ownership. So this is only pertaining to that first strip behind the curb.
So this is kind of a corollary or tangential question, but on SR 92, UDOT widened that road, and they planted a lot of those trees along SR 92. Trees that haven't done well at all. There's either people running off the road and knocking them down, or the salt. I understand the wind's been rough on them. Who is responsible to repair those trees? Is it the city?
It is the city. Yeah, we have all maintenance responsibilities on those, and so it is the city that would be responsible for replacing or pruning, attempting to heal those trees in any way.
Okay. Do we? Flood control is kind of much better. We have plans to kind of work on those trees because
there's a couple of bad ones there.
Oddly enough, I will attest with my personal eyes. There was one along 92 out along the Patterson property, the SR 92 frontage, that our seasonal employees were replanting on Monday.
Oh, wow.
As I happened to drive past them and I saw them working and replacing it was a tree that had been broken off.
Well, thank you.
I think a car actually hit one.
We are working on that tree.
But no, I recognize you with what our problem with SR 92 you brought up, Scott, is the salt gets plowed off. They put the salt down, then they plow it off, and it gets those trees, and the salt. And I don't know if you notice you have yellow on top of the whole grass in that area. It's because it's all salt on top. It's data that's kind of, you heard that grass, it takes it. It's been a late spring. But there are several. We've had some other dead trees, and some of those trees down, kind of look somewhat sad.
Yeah.
Some look really beautiful, and others.
Yeah, well, there's a few along there I've seen myself are dead as a doorlet, so to speak, and I've talked to Josh, and they're on his radar to get cut down, and because there's a few that have died, and they're just dead.
Any other discussion on this item about the landscape agreement with UDOT? Seeing none, let's go ahead and let's have a vote.
I'll make that motion. I move that the Highland City Council approve the UDOT Master Landscape Maintenance Agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement, since we're kind of stuck.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Scott, second by Kim. Trying to get us out of the recent times. That passes 5-0. We now are moving on to some communication items. There was a communication item dealing with pressurized irrigation. All of you, I'm trying to jump in. All of you will receive in the mail the following little brochure that talks about our upcoming pressurized irrigation going on in the city. Just so you're aware, we might have residents that will be reaching out to you. This is about our new pressurized meters that are going in. They're going to be going in north of SR 92 from about 6,000 west up in the area. So Sarah, you might be getting a lot of questions, but that's going to be your big area. That we are starting with pressurized irrigation meters up in that area. But this is explaining what we are doing, so you might get some questions just as a FYI. Okay?
There'll also be a little something about it in the July newsletter.
Okay. We now will move on to item number 15A, which is a property disposal. This is just discussion only, communication only. So this will be on a property disposal in the parcel up in the Dry Creek Highlands area. And I believe this is ending.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, this is one that you'll see in a future meeting. The little parcel that's circled there is a little triangle parcel. What it was is just a little remnant parcel that was with the subdivision that is to the west of that point. And we've been approached by the adjacent homeowner just to the east of the parcel, there's a maintenance agreement there. We've looked at it as a city staff and said, this is actually one of those that just probably makes sense to get rid of. You've got a fully developed street, there's no other little parcels in the area. So this is one to us that looks like, we ought to get rid of it. We would probably, well not probably, we would definitely recommend that the parcel be sold with a utility easement match the subdivisions around it. So the utility easement parallels the street, the power and gas, telephone are all remain intact. But just wanted to get any feedback from you if you are opposed to that sale. Otherwise, we will likely steer the candidate or citizen, whatever the right word is, that we're open to having them purchase it.
Any input on this item?
I want to buy this little parcel all the time. It's just hanging out. There's no reason we should keep it.
Andy and Aaron and myself, we drove by this 2 weeks ago, and I agree with Sarah. I don't see there's not anything that seems to be beneficial to the city to be able to keep this. We're not needing it. So if there's an opposition, we'll bring it back.
I agree.
Okay. That is item number 15A. 15B is a co-amendment. This could be a good discussion on trailers and dwelling units. Rob.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This has been an on and off issue for the code enforcement side of the city for a while, for compliance efforts. A lot of times people have an RV or a trailer on their property that can be habitated as a dwelling unit. So the city will get a complaint saying, oh, they have someone living in their backyard, in the trailer, which we don't allow detached accessory dwelling units. So we go in and talk to them and say, you can't do that. They say, oh, that's just an office, or we only are in there during the day. They're sometimes hooked up often to their utilities on the lot. We don't have a good code for what to do. We say you can't use it as a dwelling unit, but we don't have any other rules about how they can use it. Should it be allowed to be used as a part of a home occupation? It should be occupied at all. Some cities say you can store your stuff, but you can't actually use it for anything on the property. So Haley has been struggling with this. We've got a couple of complaints of people saying, well, someone's living there. She goes talks to them and say, we're not living there. I'm there for 8 hours a day as an office, but I'm not living there. So we wanted to ask the council for any direction on how you'd like us to handle this, either to make it clearer that we shouldn't be occupying these things at all, or if you don't care, we can kind of take that approach.
I'll give my 2 cents from experience we had in our neighborhood. We had someone that had, the family actually was renting their home out as same-day rentals, which was a problem. And that's why we changed all the ordinance and things. But they also had a trailer off to one side, and there was a woman living in there, and she had all these hoses that she was dumping all of her refuge and stuff in the storm sewer drain. And, I think we just need to prohibit that. It's not sanitary, it's not good. I'm not sure why people would have a trailer for an office. If you're going to have a home office, it ought to be in your home. That's my opinion. So I'm kind of hard-nosed about this because it really does cause a lot of harm to my neighborhood.
We call it the Clark Griswold problem, where the log comes and puts the sewer down the sewer drain.
Well, no, they put it in the storm drains.
It is a significant problem, and the fact that we have prohibition on living there, it's easier to enforce if we just say, you can't occupy these things, you can't set them up for actual use on your property. You can store them there, you can put them in a garage or in your backyard, you have the pad or whatever, but you just can't be actually using them. Because that's easy for the city to enforce. If you hooked it up, we know you're using it for something, we can say, stop that.
Okay, so I've actually had 2 neighbors. I know three residences close by my home, 4 actually now, that had someone in these for like a month. But my question, I remember as a little kid, we had a camp trailer, and we loved to sometimes go outside and stay in that 1 or 2 nights. It wasn't it was just kind of that summer activity. How can we make sure that we're not enforcing, hey, you went and had some kids who stay 2 nights versus someone that this is their living dwelling? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think part of that's just going to be, no one's going to call on a complaint or someone might, I guess, but we would still have the discretion to review something to make sure, it was your kids playing outside, I don't think we're going to go come and harm people. It's the outdoor offices and other things that we've been having struggles with. I'll say, we do have an exception in our code currently for temporary use of these when you're building something. I don't think we would change that. If you're building your home, you want to live on it while you're trying to figure out how to build it. But other than that, it's easier for staff in terms of code compliance, just that you just say, don't use them. And then we'll handle exceptions like that on kind of a reasonable basis.
And in my example, they were using it as a rental property. And, I just think that's not a good idea.
What does the rest of the council feel on this issue?
I agree with Scott.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you've got 3 council members that are, and it's less than others want to chime in, or, okay? We'll have that come back as an item then.
So, I mean, we've used the example of rental properties, but to Mayor's point, like, I think, we have heard of also, like, family letting them live there for a little while kind of thing, but still, and so that, we wouldn't distinguish between that. It's just, you can't occupy a trailer.
And for sometimes you have kids who will come back and need that space from the other household residents.
Sure.
Or sometimes when the kids have some habits, the family members don't want inside the residence.
Not in our family.
So be it. I would say that's where I've seen this sometimes where there might be some habits that someone would want to have inside the house. So, we live in a very conservative area, different things that way. So that will come back. Okay, the next item is Mountain Ridge Park fence. That will be Andy.
So, council members, one thing that's been discussed, and I think each of you have had an email from Aaron about this, is the issue came up where we want to put a fence very similar to what's around the splash pad along the parking lot adjacent to the playground. So we've requested from the contractor a price to put a fence basically right behind the sidewalk. So what you pull up and you have a parking lot and you have a 6-foot sidewalk and we put the fence right behind there. It's all the areas that are red on your screen. And it's basically intended, we're not even proposing to put gates, because right now, even on the busiest days, the gates mostly just stay open here at the splash pad. What's really intended to do is kind of cut off the toddler's path, if you will, if you have a child somewhere playing and they're prone to, maybe decide to take a run, you've got a little bit of way to head them off the pass. We've also understood that there are certain, I don't want to quote wrongly, Dr. Smith could say much more than I, but there are certain children with disabilities that may get a little bit anxious on the playground and may run as well. And so this is intended, it's not a full enclosure. We're not attempting to enclose the playground at this point. We're just
stopping the runners.
We're stopping the runners, give them a fence that they come with a fence and then they got to run along the fence, and if you're the parent, hopefully you can kind of get a line on them and cut them off at the pass, if you will. So we wanted to make sure the cost of it is a little over $39,000 to put in. Now's the time to decide if we were going to move forward. Now's the time to do it. That way we can install the sprinklers in our application, et cetera, and have it just done when we open the park. So we bring to the council, there's sufficient contingency that we planned in the project and it's been approved so we can move forward with the expense. But it is, there will be some who come to the park and maybe don't like it. Maybe they want to pull up and they just want to park and walk straight to the playground, and this is going to limit where you can walk in and just the main entrances. So where it might be a little divisive, we want to bring it to the council and make sure we get feedback before we move forward.
I think this is a good idea. I think if we don't do it now, we'll be doing it in the future, because I think it's good preventative things. And when you take your kids to the playground, I don't think you really want to have to watch them every second. And it's impossible to do that. I mean, when I have little kids and stuff, no matter how hard we try, they still get away if you kind of distracted for a minute or two. So I think it's nice to have that extra protection, because parking lots are dangerous. And especially when little kids run out between parked cars and there's a car coming, you don't see it till the last minute. So if we can prevent a future tragedy, I think something like this is well worth the funds.
I agree, and just how you said that people might be upset that they can't just walk into the park wherever they want. That's exactly why you need the fence, so a kid can't just walk out whenever they want.
Me too. I agree with Scott.
Although Kim can probably catch her kids. I never could catch mine.
Yeah,
Kim probably can catch your kids.
My kids are definitely the ones bolting out there.
They're going to follow the fence.
You know, one thing I think is a really wise decision with the fence. The park, if you go there, if my wishes were dreams, we could have put the playground another 50 feet back in, but because we're trying to preserve the soccer fields and things that way, the playground is a little bit closer to, you know, as we were doing a site visit, you're going, okay, it feels a little closer to the parking lot, so I would really, that's where the fence recommendations that Andy and Aaron, you know, myself were walking over there, we could see that a runner can beat that parent to that parking area, and we need to get some barrier.
Yeah, and this will, we certainly don't want any tragedy, period. This will put us in a position where we're well suited to cut them off from the parking lot, and then if we, you know, get a little in practice and we need to do a little bit more on either end to kind of still funnel them back a little more, it won't be a significant add. Like I said, the attempts not to make it impenetrable, it's just simply to kind of head them off the pass a little bit.
Since we're talking about the park, is it still on tap to have pickleball and parking done July 31st?
I hope so. The schedules say it can happen. And there's a lot of work that is happening. If you go out there, there's a lot of work happening every day, but there is a lot of work yet to go before the end of July to make that happen.
I've got pictures, if you want to see the electronic brain of all the wires for this park. I was there, and I thought like 30 little electronic cords going on. Where's this on? All the power of the park. You're sitting going, what? You know, and you're seeing these great big 4 or 5 inches. That's your main line coming in from the sprinkler system. You're just going, holy Toledo!
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a significant project and a major undertaking. So you know, I'm going to give an optimistic yes, but ask me again in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how the next couple of weeks go.
So now we're talking about the park. Can I ask this? Are we going to send out a fundraiser? Because there's a lot of people that would probably donate $25-50. We have Venmo now with the foundation. It just seems like now is the time that people can see this park coming.
Well, we've got the Venmo, but I think we've kind of waited a little bit just as summer started. There's so busy. I think as we get a little closer, we can maybe do our big push. I'm just trying to think, what's the timing of fundraising?
And I don't know if there's ever a perfect time, because we're worried about taxes in April, we're worried about the debt bill. I think maybe it's sooner than later.
Okay. And that's something, as a council, we've got to kind of get together and really, I don't know if we want to have just a fundraising work session, or we do 2 or 3 council members come in, or 2 council members, and we just hammer through the fundraising, and then we get that brochure just right how we want it, and then we get ready to go and send it out.
I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll have a lot of people donate at least $25.
Well, and I think if you know, as I've talked to people about if you want to do a bench or a tree, or I know to be very open, as you brought up, a lot of the residents on the backside, they've already asked if they could donate trees. Now they're trying to do so they can kind of shield their house by going, hey, a lot of trees along there. I don't think we want. I don't know if the park people want to see their house. I'm just saying, I think it could work both ways.
Yeah, if they want to donate, let them.
That's why I think you hit everyone along there and see if they want to put some trees out along there and kind of fill it in.
And then we need a big sign out front.
With the Venmo and different things. Say
Scott's face?
No. But
guys, it's a nice park. It's starting to come together. It's going to be exciting.
I still think we need a big flag.
We are. We have a flag that's coming in right by the line. correct? We went and saw it, you were asking for the place.
It'll be right behind the sign, it'll be 50 foot tall.
Great. And I want it to be an American flag.
Yes. American flag, single pole, American flag, right behind the Mount Ridge sign as you walk in the main with it.
Go big American flag, Scott.
There's a lot of controversy about that lately, so okay.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion from the council on? I mean, we're excited. Boundary Park's going to kind of pop, which will be exciting. We now have about the Highland water maintenance plan.
Okay, Mayor and Council, as you're aware, this spring, honestly, quite surprisingly to us, we found some water quality tests, and right now we're not completely sure why, because as you know, we've had water upon water. Now, what was going into the Highland Pond was very dirty, just what was going down the river, right? Because when we first found the test, the water was chocolate milk in the river, full of soil, sediments, organics, everything was coming down the river. So that's one of our theories, is that the organic load that was in the water was perhaps not only carrying bacteria but also feeding bacteria that are already in the pond. Since that time, we've had a little bit of an up and down ride. After we got that first valley test, we made sure everything was clean, that we're getting as much water as we could there. The next week we passed. The next week we failed, but just barely. Last week we passed. Before we take down the signs, we want to have 2 weeks in a row where the water's clean. The river's cleaned up a lot, the water's cleaned up. We would expect we're going to pass this week. But, coming back to the overall point, I know that the citizens have expressed frustration on the water quality issues. A lot of the water quality has happened when we're later in the summer on the dry years, and we're just getting what water we can get in there. The Highland is entirely man-made. There's no springs that feed it. It's just whatever river water. One form or another, it's generally river water. Sometimes we've supplemented with a little of our Deer Creek water, but it's surface water. So we bring to you for discussion options, and then I'll give you the staff recommendation at the next part. Okay, so just thought of a half dozen options that we could take to make our water management a little more predictable. Number one, we could just continue as we are. We try to get as much fresh water as we can when water is available to the pond. Number two, we could install a drinking water source to the pond, essentially put drinking water quality water to the pond. It is possible, if we want to choose that option, that we might have some water rights issues, because our water rights are really for municipal consumption and irrigation. So we haven't really vetted that.
Are you saying you put chlorinated water in the pond?
Not necessarily chlorinated. We don't chlorinate yet, but water out of our wells, pump our wells, essentially put in the pond the same water that we all drink here in Highland. Number three, we could try to put some additional bubblers or water quality devices. See what we can figure out there.
We have currently already have bubblers in.
We already have bubblers in. They've been functioning all spring. Like I said, getting these belly tests on Memorial Day, that was a complete shock to us. It was like, whoa, what just happened there? Why did that happen? We've got the bubblers in, they're working.
So, aren't there 3 bubblers? There were 3 installed 10 years ago.
There's multiple. I don't remember how many. I'm sorry. I know there's multiple. And they were working this spring. I verified with our team and visually. This spring they were working. So, number 4, if we want to get really aggressive, we could contract to have a chemist/biologist. Probably have to go to something on the university level. We could hire, a university professor or someone to help us come up with additives or other things that we can do to manage the chemistry in the pond. Because it's probably beyond any of the expertise of anything we've got on staff. That is one avenue that we could take to kind of come up with a concerted, proactive management effort. Different, additives and things that we put in the pond to keep bacteria in check. Another option would be to remove swimming from the pond. You still have water quality when it came to, are the fish contaminated, but I don't know that the sensitivity is quite there as it is for people swimming in the pond. Or you could remove ducks or fish from the pond. And I don't know that we're advocating any of these particularly as much as just trying to serve up a palette of choices that was thought of what are the potential choices that we could do to help, avoid or minimize the water quality issues, because I know it's very frustrating when you get your whole family all loaded up in the car and you got all your floaties and you go down to the pond, have a good day, and you get down there and there's a big sign that says danger. There's, water quality is not great. And that's why we bring it to you for a discussion. Do we want to get more proactive than we currently are? That's probably the heart of the question.
I have a daughter, they like to paddleboard, and they love to come to that pond and paddleboard. I don't know how you can paddleboard without swimming, so I would eliminate the swimming. We put the swimming in there about 10 years ago. I think if there was a way we could control the duck and geese population, I know that they use it kind of as a migratory pond a little bit, but there are a lot of ducks in there, and I would dare say that we get more E. coli from the ducks than we do from the fish that are transplanted every year in there. And a lot of people come to fish in there. A lot of people, especially on the north end, like to swim or paddleboard. And since we don't have a recreation center in the city, I'd hate to eliminate those. But I would like to see more bubblers and aerators. I mean, even you could have more aggressive bubblers where it actually bubbles up over the surface, or even a fountain-like effect or something. I would think that would make a difference. I don't know if you're the engineer, but I think getting the duck population down would be where I would lean, putting more bubblers in.
We had that one group that was trying to help us with ducks. Did they come in this year, or is that a one and done?
I don't know. We approached them and said, hey, it's time. Why don't you see if you can remove some of the ducks? And they said they were organizing their efforts, but they never really followed through and let us know what they really actually removed ducks. So we really, I don't know. I don't want to say they didn't come, but I don't know that they really materialized.
How did you even do that?
They call them, they kind of bring them all into a group, and they try to pick which ones are the way natives and which ones are the wild, and they try to capture, go and adopt them out.
Every year?
That's what they said they would help.
That's what the groups that were advocating for kind of the duck preservation, for lack of a better word, do. DWR does it a little different. When they do it.
We should make it a Highland Fling event.
I know what?
Like a Highland Fling event.
Catch
Yeah.
duck.
Yeah.
I agree with Scott. Remove ducks. I would like to keep the fish there, since that's a great activity. Swimming, great activity. More bubblers if you think that'll help. And then if those things don't materialize into better conditions, then look at contracting and pond management.
Well, could we reach out to one of the colleges to see if they could come down and give us a recommendation? Hey, they shouldn't charge us. They're professors. They want to come study this. Could we ask them, say, hey, what would be your recommendation what to do? Because I always think these bubblers, like I said, it's raising the first surface like they do in an aquarium. But sometimes an aquarium is just moving water. They just put a great big thing in the thing that's just moving the water around, so it's not stagnant. And I don't know. I know it's a big pond, but the bubblers or things, but maybe they can help us with some suggestion. I would assume you have to call her and bring down the level of the ducks. We've got to get this under control. Right. In some way, we've got to say, okay, can we get a group to come in like they offered last year to help kind of get half the duck population? If not, we have to look at other options to kind of get that.
Sure.
And if not, the health of a human we have to, the health of the residents and those who are visiting there are more important than, and I understand we want to save the ducks, but I just save the human population before the duck.
Right. So is there any chance, I mean, I know we only have permission to put so much water in the pond. On these high water years, could we put a little more water in the pond and bring out the Marine Corps River, or is that restricted?
No, it's not really restricted because all it does is it just goes through the pond and goes right back to the river, right? So what we're restricted by is just how much water physically we can move through the pond. I mean, we only have a certain pipe size that comes in out of the river. It has gotten blocked with some of the river debris on us, and we have to kind of unplug it and things that way. But from a water rights perspective, we haven't viewed it as a problem in that regard because it's really just kind of another little tributary or larger path to the river. We put the water in on the north end, and it basically goes out on kind of that southwest side and just flows right back to the river. So it's kind of just like a detour. It's much more problematic in the years when the river's dry. Then we have to use some of the Pleasant Grove irrigation ditches to get it there, and then we do have the ability to open some of our PI pipes and get water there to the PI system.
So right now you're diverting water from American Fork River.
Right now we're doing all three. Okay, we wanted to pass, so we have some water passing through our PI system, we're taking in water from the Pleasant Grove ditches, and we're taking water from the river, just trying to move it through. So if you've been down there, a lot of times the outlet channel is just a little trickle. It's going pretty good. I mean, there's quite a bit of flow moving through the pond. That's why it's kind of this spring's been a little bit of a mystery, and the only thing that I can figure out is that it has to do with the organics and other things that the river flow has been carrying, and bringing into the pond as well. And it could be the ducks as well. So I don't think we did much reduction.
Andy, do you know how much those bubblers are?
I don't know the cost on.
It seems like we should have, see if we can find an expert who would be willing to, like a professor or something, who would be willing to give us an opinion before we spend money on anything. I know a couple of people that I'm happy to reach out to.
That would be great. I mean, the biology and chemistry of that water, is a delicate thing to make sure that we kill enough bacteria that the water's safe, but don't kill all fish.
There were a few people who were super active in the Utah thing that I can reach out to.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Why, since we're talking about kind of water maintenance and kind of a thing, I'd recommend the councilors there's a newspaper called the Lehigh Free Press that kind of covers Lehigh City. There's a question that's come up always about Dry Creek Lake. They have a good article in the Lehigh Free Press that they'll discuss what the council there in Lehigh, they are a divided council what to do with the Dry Creek Lake Reservoir.
Does it ever do the recreation in there?
I'd recommend you go read that article. They've talked about not doing it more minimalized, doing the full bore. This gives you're getting different council members chiming in. It's kind of on hold until they fund it. But that's kind of that Lehigh Free Press has a good article on it. We're going to give some update. I just think that would be another lake. In the article they'll just talk about they were very nervous about making a main such a large lake because it stops people from going to Tibble Fork, which Tibble Fork's packed. But we have our Highland Bend that gets 4th of July weekend. If it's warm, we will be packed up there.
So the use that Highland Bend is quite impressive. As far as last day of school this year, it was just packed. I actually went there the other night and rode around the pond, and was impressed with how many people were there. Just using it on just a Wednesday night. It's impressive.
Okay. Item number E, we will discuss at a later time, which is they're just kind of working on a couple of things. Flood irrigation or flood update. Andy, item F.
Well, the good news is, as we indicated, a couple weeks ago, I think we're through a big concern concern. There's still a lot of water in the river coming down, but we peaked off. The irrigation company is making preparations this week and early next week to remove the big track hole that's sitting in the mouth of the canyon, and so we're looking towards that signal being restored up there at the mouth of the canyon that had been put in, and things kind of returning to normal. That's not to say that there won't be need to clean there at Mouth Canyon and the rebasin, and once the flows recede enough that the rebasin's empty, we're going to need to do a big cleaning there. We've collected quite the pile of wood and other debris this year, so we're going to have to do some extra things to grind up that wood. And
when you grind it up, can you offer it to residents?
As I say, we may, depending on what we've got, we may actually put it out for an offering. It wouldn't be, other than make mulch and kind of let it cook, so to speak. It wouldn't cook, but we're wondering, what we're going to do with it all.
I guess you could grind it, make a mulch for people to come get mulch.
Yeah, we could make it available.
I've got a lot of people who get that mulch.
Yeah, next year. So that is one thing that we've tossed around, is once we kind of grind it up this fall, we're kind of going to wait to the summer season, we'll grind it up this fall, potentially make it available to the residents.
I know that the law, those up there are public works, spend a lot of time with our flood. I mean, we are really lucky, like I said, with the rebase. I know they were up there, some risking their life to get things cleaned out.
Yes.
I like to find a way to kind of say thank you. I don't know if it's doing a big lunch out there to tell them thank you or something. We can maybe discuss that offline and just. I think as a council, as a city, we need to tell them thank you. I mean, we did not, like I said, there were some things that got close, but this was the year that going into March, we thought we were going to have it. When someone had said 1st of May, we thought we were going to be having severe flooding, and here we are for the end of June, and we got through it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. I appreciate like you said, our team, and there were several weekends in a row there that, the crews had to work, on Friday or Saturday, either fighting the flood or preparing for the flood, and those things that we did. So, very much appreciate the efforts of not only our crew, but the American Fork and Cedar Hills also participate with their crews, and especially we all need to take our hat off to Ernie John. He's basically lived in Mouth Canyon for 5 to 6 weeks now. He's still committed to staying there another couple of weeks till he's contented that he can go home and sleep the night in bed and not worry about it.
Is it true over here that Ernie John has put his name in to run that in their work city?
Yes, that's true.
That's true. Yeah. So, Mayor, I would recommend that we maybe have some sort of commemoration or award.
I agree. We recognize
the public.
I think we can bring them in, maybe Highland Heroes or something like that.
Yeah, and Ernie Johns, yes, because it's really, we missed the bullet. Yeah.
I think that is so we could have them come back and then we said recognize them too. That'd be appropriate. Okay. Anything else in flooding? Okay, fraud risk assessment.
All right, another exciting fraud risk assessment year per year. By way of review, the state auditor's fraud risk assessment is required of each city and local entity. 21 questions in the assessment. Points are awarded for the criteria that we meet, so the higher the score, the idea is that there's less risk of fraud. The primary focus is basic separation of duties. So slightly more than half of the points available are dedicated to that point, which the city does qualify for. We are now at, and this actually did not change from last year, at 305 points, which is considered in the moderate range. And so that will be part of what we submit to the state auditor. Looking ahead, this is similar information we share with the Public Safety District Board. Our insurance, provided the trust, will require a score of no less than 356 points out of a total of 395 that are available. So mathematically, that means we cannot miss more than one all of the 20-point values, otherwise don't qualify. So we've, as staff, identified how to do that. Additional points are available by creating an audit committee. We'd like to do that by the middle of the year. And we'll bring back more information on these specifically, but then want to make sure that all council members complete Friday training by the end of March. Those that have already completed it, you only have to do that once per cycle. So for those that may be running in November, and if are re-elected, would need to once again do that training. But you want to make sure that we get the 20 points there.
So do you have a record of us being conducted?
You got the certificate.
2 or 3 times, actually.
Yes.
Okay, now you just said, so if someone is up for re-election, once they get re-elected, sworn in, they have to redo it at that time.
Correct.
Okay. Or if there's whoever's elected, so it's a one who's swearing in.
Yeah. So they would go in like in November. So at that point, I'm sure your very first order of action would be to take the progress training following the election. So then we'll implement a quarterly audit plan and begin with the committee and the council's direction to look at specific audit items there by the end of March. Some policy revisions. There's a couple of policies that we can update and get some more points. So those are the main pieces. That licensing and certification, we are working on that certification. There are something available through the Government Finance Officers Association. It is actually the quickest way to qualify there, but that is a couple of years down the road there. So, any questions about the fraud risk assessment?
Anybody? Financial report for April.
All right. And Aaron passed out.
We are 10 o'clock, and we need to have a motion to go from the next couple items that will be done by 10:10 easy.
I'll make that motion.
10:10, second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So we are 10 months into the fiscal year. Generally speaking, 82% in the fiscal year with some items such as sales tax that lag a couple of months. Highlights within the general fund, and again, this is looking at the month of April. We have talked in the last couple of weeks about sales tax through May, whatnot, but just a reminder, this is through April we're looking at here. So general fund tax revenue was at 85% of the annual projection, with 4 more months to go in sales tax. Licenses and permits were nearing the full year estimate. As we mentioned before, the last couple of months have seen some significant uptick in building revenue. And then snow removal, as you saw in the budget amendments you approved earlier this evening, the snow removal is quite heavy this year. Open space, been seeing the additional property sales for the last couple of months. Road capital, we're keeping an eye on the 1600 West reimbursement. Going to get that in the next too. Storm sewer, flood mitigation. Again, as we talked about here in the previous item, but budget adjustments include some money for that. Impact fees, staff continues to monitor the activity there, but the budget you passed this evening did have some conservative estimates, assuming some potential unfairness there. Sales tax overall, 3.6 million was is the budget for fiscal 23. We're wrapping up here shortly. April saw $286,000 roughly. Year to date, that means about 2.5 million, and that's 2/3 of a year in terms of sales tax. Still with 4 months to go. Last April, by comparison, roughly around the same point. So April to April was only an increase of 1.8%. Through year to date, 2.3 last year at this point, compared to that 2.5 that we're at now. So that represents an increase year to date over last year of 8.4%. Rolling 12-month, we'll put us at $3,859,024. I think we've shared this before, just 20 years of history. Certainly, as Council Member Smith alluded to, we hope to see the economy stay where it's at, but here it's not unheard of to see market corrections. So a couple of instances in the last 20 years, that's what we prepared for in the estimates that the mayor proposed and what he passed as a council. So, any questions about the April financial report?
Thank you.
The next item is Alpine Food Storage. I had an opportunity to actually go down and stop and see the location of Alpine Food Storage. They're moving in American Fork. I was with David and Shereen Wadsworth while I was down there. I'm impressed. They have a lot of their dry goods already in there on the shelves. They are moving forward. I guess the big question will be asking Shereen. They believe they will, the last date they'll be open will be June 30th here in the higher location, and the plan is to open up July 1st or July 5th down at their new location. Now, they still have a lot of work to go. They got about 2 weeks to get it done. There's still a lot of work to happen. That is what they shared with me. It'll be a nice store. They've got a lot of plans down there. So it'll be exciting. I wish them well as they make this move, and hopefully they're very successful. So, any questions on Alpine Food Storage?
Great.
Okay, item number J is the November meeting. We have it scheduled on November 7th. I believe, Stephanie, you want to discuss that.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So originally we had scheduled our November meeting to be on November 14th to allow for the November 7th election. As you probably all know, that has been changed now, so we would like to move ahead with our November 7th meeting, and then we will allow for the election to take place on the 21st of November. So if you're okay with that, we'll arrange that schedule so we'll meet on the 7th instead of later in the month.
So we have no primary. So if I was a candidate, I'd probably campaign a little bit in November.
I'm sorry, so what was that?
I said there's no primary, right?
No primary election for him.
And so I said if I was a candidate, I'd do my campaign a little bit in November.
That's right, yeah. Thank you.
Other than that, just a couple of other just clean up items, just looking at calendaring. On this upcoming Thursday at 5:30 p.m., we have a grand opening for the Bliss Hairwolf thing. I'm not sure.
Bliss Beauty Lounge.
That's the Beauty Lounge. So I'd like to invite those who'd like to come to help with the grand opening there. Those who are doing a ribbon cutting. I believe they actually have quite a big event that night. So that will be on Thursday night. The Highland Youth Council or ours also have a retreat this weekend. They leave on Thursday and come back Saturday mid-afternoon. They are looking if there's anyone that might be able to help drive up on Thursday, or if there's any council members that would like to go out to participate in some of our ethical controversy doing or some of their events. And they are also looking for help in driving back down some of the youth on Saturday probably right around 11 a.m. from the Snow College area. Is there just any input from council members that might be able to help with the Highland Youth Council? I wasn't sure. It sounds like that about 12 to 14 years ago after this that retreat. So it's actually down in Snow College area. They rented a Forest Service. They're more cabin-like.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little cabin retreat area that the college actually owns. But, yeah.
So it's that's what?
We just rented the airport.
Could we rent it? Aaron, do you know if they got worked out, the driver situation?
Last I talked to Robin this afternoon, it was TBA. What it's likely looking like is I might help on the way up on Thursday, and Mayor might be able to help on Saturday on the way home. But that idea is interesting, actually.
Yeah, but so that motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. It's 10:08. Who won?